right, test, test. Okay, cool, cool. Can y'all hear me now? Can y'all hear me now? Hold on one second. Test, 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 test. Uh oh. Can y'all hear me now? All right, hold on, hold on. I think we might be good. I think we might be good. All right. Okay, cool, cool. All right, grace and peace, y'all. Grace and peace. All right, cool. So everybody's saying that they can hear me now. Listen, man, I'm here on Restream. It's my first time going live on Restream. You know, in this mode. Y'all know usually I got the effects and all of that stuff, but I don't have it because I'm here traveling for work. All right, but this is kind of like a um, this is kind of like one of those emergency streams. All right, because I was watching this video. It was a video with Gavin Ortlund and what's the guy's name? Doctor. Oh, I'm sorry, not doctor, but his name is like Father John. Father. Is a father. Yeah, Father Jonathan. All right, so it's Father Jonathan, and I can't remember the name of the podcast. It is because we're gonna be reviewing this video in a minute. The Transfigure Life. All right, so we're gonna be getting into that in a minute, but I just want to greet the fam, see how you guys are doing. Grace of peace, giving everybody a chance to come up in here. Grace and peace, Og. Grace and peace, Og. It's gonna start getting dark here in a minute because I was gonna close the blind on that window, but I guess I'll just let that just ride for now. Grace and peace, everyone. Let me start. Let me see if I can start from the top, seeing how you guys are. We got Lionel, grace and peace, Lionel. You know, we also got Johnny up in here. So it seems like that only those. Oh wait, we got Sean Kelly too. All right, grace and peace, Sean Kelly, and we also got Carrie. Carrie is up in the house. Grace and peace. He says, living the forgiven life. Yes, we're all forgiven through Jesus Christ. And we got this hater up in here. God is the great physician. Say Gavin Ortlund intentionally misunderstands. We're gonna see who did the misunderstanding. All right. You know, listen. This is a cope stream right now, so you can do all of the coping you want. All right, but we gonna put that truth out there. All right. But I'm glad to see you. Excuse me. God is the great physician. Grace and peace. Grace and peace. Yeah. Listen, I was watching that video this afternoon, or was it this morning? No, it was this morning because I was actually on my way from the hotel room to the job, and I was watching it. And apparently, this happened yesterday, and this was put on the Transfigure Life. Uh, I guess it was on their YouTube channel. So, like I said, it was Gavin Ortland and Father Jonathan, and I was like, "Yo, Gavin Ortland did his thing." All right, Gavin Ortland did his thing. Grace and peace, Segoy, grace and peace. Oh, I got to make sure that my microphone is still working. Transfigure life. Okay, seems like that my microphone is still working. All right. Yeah. Yeah, Carrie says, I highly doubt that Gavin misunderstood anything. We'll see. Yeah, we definitely gonna put this up. I don't know how long I'm gonna be on. I think I just need to go ahead and get to this video. All right. Um, I want y'all to know that. Oh, let me see what Og says. Og says, somebody explain, please explain to me who these restream bot. Okay, so the whole restream bot. Okay, what it is that I'm streaming from the landscape version and the portrait version. All right. So let me see if I can. Hold on one second. Okay, so I'm streaming from both versions, landscape and the portrait. So the landscape version is going to show up as just like the regular comments, but the portrait version is going to show up as the restream bot and vice versa. All right, so if you are over on the portrait version, all of the comments on the landscape version is going to show up uh, as the restream bot and vice versa. All right. So all right, but anyway, we about to go ahead and get into this, okay? Because I don't know if y'all have seen this video. Y'all know it must be something, especially if I'm getting ready to go live on it right now. Y'all know I usually don't do this, but I'm gonna try to see if I can do more streams like this whenever I got time, because things are starting to calm down a little bit. Oh, let me see. Here we go. Things are starting to calm down just a little bit for work. All right. Okay, so I got the screen up. So where am I? Maybe I don't need to be up. All right. Oh, okay. Share multiple screens, but okay. I ain't gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna let it ride like that. All right. So let me see. Now it's not showing up that well. Hold on one second. It's not showing up that well on the portrait version. I'm trying to see if I can. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this is not showing up uh that well. Uh-oh, somebody said no sound. Test, 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 test. Oh man. Showing up that well on the portrait version. Okay, wait, hold on. I can hear myself. Sean Kelly said I don't have any sound. It's not showing up. Let me see. Yeah, no, I can hear myself. I can hear myself, Sean Kelly. He must be behind. He must be behind. All right, we're going to go ahead. Okay, good, good. Y'all can hear me. Okay, so let's get ready to do this. Okay, so let me see if I can take this down real quick. And I'm still trying to figure out these controls and stuff. Y'all forgive me. Oh, here we go, right here. All right, so I want I want to go ahead and preface this at the part where we're at right now. Okay, the part where we're at right now on this particular screen or at this particular part of the video, Father Jonathan has gone through his whole spiel about, the Orthodox Church and what's the true church, X, Y, and Z, this, that, and the third. So now they're getting ready to bring on Gavin Ortlund, and Gavin Ortlund is getting ready to kind of give his give kind of like his opening. I wouldn't say opening statement, but kind of like his. All right, and I want y'all to pay attention to what's going to be said during this interaction. All right, fair use. Okay, wait, hold on. He says, "Oh, it just went back out." Wait, hold on, hold on, 1 second, because the brother said that he can't hear me. Opening statement, but kind of like his. I don't know. The brother Sean Kelly saying that the sound keep going out, but I don't know. All right. Anyway, fair use.
Probably move to a more free flow dialogue. But Gavin, if you want to share, I know there was a lot shared there. If you want to share maybe your views or your thoughts, some of the things that you've heard, I know that was so I appreciate you sharing. But yeah, if you want to share, if you want to kind of, I know that was a lot, but if you want to kind of add to that, or even share how you understand the church. I know from my reading of some of your material, I know you've talked about the church being made up of multiple institutions, and you said a lot of important things about how you understand the church. So if you want to add.
Yes. Yeah, thanks. And I don't have a prepared statement here at the beginning. I was thinking we would just come to dialogue here, but just to interact with that a little bit and share, introduce some categories. I think, in the time we have, maybe I'll just focus on the main point that I see as the difference, because there's a lot of agreement. I mean, we can speak of the church as institutional, as sacramental. I actually love that phrase, mystery with institutions, rather than institution with mysteries. That's interesting. And on so many points, we can go, 80 yards down the field together and saying, yes, the church is the body of Christ. Yes, it is this organic reality, and so on and so forth. I think, Luther, you just mentioned the question of not restricted to one institution. I mean, that's one way of getting right into the nerve center of where we have differences. I'll throw out a few categories. First, it's a caricature of Protestants that we believe in an invisible church rather than a visible church. This is something I've tried to belabor in the past, and I'll keep trying to clarify this. The visible-invisible distinction is a distinction affirming two different aspects of the church. It is not a affirmation that the church is invisible rather than invisible. And actually, it's a pretty modest claim, actually. It's saying there's the church as God sees her, because he knows exactly where everyone's heart is and who is actually united to Christ. And then there is the church as we see her, and our vision is imperfect. So there can be people who are baptized and look like they are Christians, but they are actually not mystically united to Christ. In their hearts, they may hate Christ, like Judas Iscariot, who was an apostle in one sense, but so forth. Even all those things, though,
all right, now I want you to pay attention to what Gavin is saying, because you have to remember that a lot of these Orthodox folks, their biggest thing is saying that us Protestants, we don't believe in the visible church. We only believe in this quote unquote invisible church, right? Like, oh, we just believe that anybody just shows up, and as long as you claim to be a Christian, then that's okay. You're part of the body of Christ. And what Gavin is saying, and he's going to keep saying this over and over to these guys, letting them know, like, hey, your understanding of our view of what we say as the invisible church, this is totally different from what we're actually saying. So you don't really listen to what we say. You just kind of come up with your own caricature, and then you argue against that. You see what I'm saying? So that's the problem that we have a lot with these folks in the Orthodox Church. And I like the way that Gavin Ortlund went straight into that. And he's just like, yo, let's go ahead and set some foundations and some rules right now. You know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and get a lot of this out of the way. All right. All right, let's get back to it. Fair use.
You can find a lot of agreements conceptually. The nub of the issue is, for me, Eastern, and I think for most Protestants, Eastern Orthodoxy's restriction of the church to herself. And that really is the issue there. I mean, basically, I think the response, and I've, this dialogue has come out in connection with several others I've been having. So we've been working at these things, and I've been trying to make myself available to just talk and have these discussions to try to work at things and try to keep a charitable relationship along the way. And I think the dialogues have been pretty good. They have clunky moments, but I think clarity emerges.
They've had some clunky moments for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a little awkward when you're coming from two different paradigms and you're trying to sort of get on the same wavelength. And so there's moments of friction like that, but I think they've been good, and I've appreciated each person I've dialogued with, and I think clarity has kind of emerged from those in some ways, because I think some of my just original points have sort of been acknowledged and conceded. I'm called a Christian in a colloquial sense, but not in a soteriological sense. There's this idea that Protestants are kind of over there with other non-Christian religions.
Well, if I could,
yeah, just finish thought, then I'll stop in a second. But basically,
okay. So what Gavin Ortlund is referring to is that the conversation that he had with Jonathan Peugeot. So remember, when he was talking to Jonathan Peugeot goes, when he asked him straight up, he says, "Listen, do you believe that us as Protestants, are we Christians?" And Jonathan Peugeot's response was, well, you're kind of a Christian in a colloquial sense. Now, if you guys don't know who Jonathan Peugeot is, all right, now remember, I did a live stream not too long ago, and this was the guy talking about Jesus was eating from the tree of knowledge when he was on the cross. It's that guy. That's the guy who said that us as Protestants are not Christians. So the guy who said that Jesus was eating from the tree of knowledge, of the tree of good and evil, when he was on the cross, because he had the thief and then he had the murderer on the other side, that was Jesus eating from the tree of good and evil. That's the guy who said that we're not Christians. So that is who Gavin Ortlund is referring to when he's making all of these statements. All right.
the concern that is at the heart of it to me is just basically still on the table for me of just, why should someone accept that the true Church of Jesus Christ is restricted to Eastern Orthodoxy per se? I guess I would love to just maybe, and this is something I'd love to talk about with you guys, is just to share how that comes across to me, how I'm starting in my just life as a human being and as a Christian, that then I get to that claim and the background before I get there, and then to try to understand from your perspective why that is compelling to you. Because to me, I go through my life and I say, basically, I'm a human being. I'm a Christian because I think Christianity is true. I think God exists. I've been convinced by Christ. I think Christ is God. I think Christ rose from the dead. And then you're going from there. And then I get to this point where I meet a claim that comes at me and says, actually, only about 12 or 13% of what you're seeing as Christianity is actually the true Church of Christ. And I look at that and I just say, why would anybody accept that? I just don't really get I don't get why that's compelling to people. And it's a lot is at stake because we're talking about not just salvation, but just where we set the dials for what Christianity is. And I could say more about this, but let me pause there. I see you wanted to jump in there.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, no, that's a great, I think that's a fair question. Why should you accept this? And Father Jonathan, feel free to hop in at any time that you want. I mean, essentially my thing is if if Christ has established a church, then I want to join it, right, wherever it is, and so I think I wouldn't make numbers the focal point, because I know sometimes you say, okay, well, Orthodoxy is just it seems like such a small minority in what you would consider Christendom. But the reality is for me, so something I find compelling as a convert who used to actually be where you are, in kind of like a more Reformed Protestant kind of confession. But this idea of me seeing that historical continuity, Orthodoxy has, obviously you hear it all the time, that is the fullness of the faith. But the reality is that true? And can that be defended? And I think that Orthodox Christianity and the Orthodox Church has the most explanatory power than any form of what you see as Christian, in Christianity today, name it. And so, Protestantism off the table for me is apostolic succession, and there's so to talk about. We can talk about sacraments. We can talk about the understanding of salvation, theosis, which Orthodoxy still maintains that proper understanding of salvation.
You already see him going off the rails. And one thing that I do want to warn y'all about, okay? One thing I do want to warn you guys about is that you're going to hear a lot of the Orthodox script, all right? You're going to hear a lot of the Orthodox script, especially from the guy who's talking, the host of the channel. His name is Jonathan, and he has this channel which is called The Transfigured Life. So you're gonna hear a lot of the slop arguments. And I mean, I kind of want to be a little bit charitable right now, because it hasn't gotten spicy yet. But these are a lot of the Orthodox script arguments. Like we're the one true church, and the only way to be right with God is to go through theosis and all of that stuff, right? So let me see what Og says. Og says, what I find compelling, the Lord Jesus Christ can make me righteous, me a sinner. Well, apparently the Orthodox don't believe that. All right, let's get back to it.
That you see in the fathers and in scripture, this idea of I can't just go ahead and start my own church. I can't do my own thing. Right. And so authority is important. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what Father Jonathan shared a moment ago about this idea of, this structure is that there's actual real boundaries to it. There is a hierarchy, and within Protestantism, sometimes it's used as this broad term. You don't really, you have to kind of look at it on an individual basis. And Pentecostals don't have apostolic succession. Baptists don't have apostolic succession. You just go down the line. So you're already knocking off groups. You know what I mean? So, Father Jonathan, I can let you hop in.
Well, but Dr. Gavin, when you say that.
All right, I want to address this comment real quick. Sean Kelly, grace and peace. Sean Kelly says, "Hey, Alton, I'm new to the channel. Is there any archive video you can point me to? Just see how you got started, how you came to understand God under the Reformed tradition." Well, first of all, I didn't get started up under the Reformed tradition. I kind of started out I guess you'll call it like non-denom. And I know that's gonna be some beef for some people, but I did kind of start out as like a non-denominational, um, but I ended up accepting Reformed theology because I would watch like different videos and stuff, and just to be fully transparent, I was asking a lot of questions, and I was always asking like these more deeper theological things. And I wouldn't just say they're deeper theological things, but stuff such as how did we get the 66 books? You know what I'm saying? What is the understanding of the Trinity? Like, how did we get Christianity in America? Stuff like that. And then all these videos will pop up. And majority of the people, if not all of the people that I saw covering this, were people who were reformed. All right. So I started watching a lot of people who were reformed because it seems like that they were the only ones really dealing with these topics, and more of your like non-denom people were dealing more with like the gospel. You see what I'm saying? Not saying that non-denominationalism is bad. And I know that might be some beef for some other people, but I don't care. This is just me talking. Okay. So because when I first started coming to the faith, I was dealing with the gospel. I wanted to know who Jesus was. What does the Bible say about Jesus? But then once I started learning about who Jesus was, those in the Bible, the gospel, this and the third, then I started asking more of those questions, like, okay, well, why do we have a Bible? Like what languages did Jesus speak? And I started getting, put on to like different people who were explaining these things. And long story short, they were reformers, and I didn't know it at the time, but that's how I kind of started getting more into like Reformed theology. All right, so that's how I started. But I do got some videos, and I got a lot of videos. But I guess if you can like type in my name, Alton Johnson, Reformed theology or Calvinism or whatever, you'll start to see some of my videos pop up on like different topics and stuff. All right, let's get back to it. Actually, I'm going to back this up just a little bit because I want to make sure that you guys can hear maybe the last few seconds of what was being said. All right, fair use.
Father Jonathan shared a moment ago about this idea of, this structure is there's actual real boundaries to it. There is a hierarchy, and within Protestantism, sometimes it's used as this broad term. You don't really, you have to kind of look at it on an individual basis. And Pentecostals don't have apostolic succession. Baptists don't have apostolic succession. You just go down the line. So like you're already knocking off groups. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Father Jonathan, I could let you hop in.
Well,
but
Dr. Gavin, when you say that the biggest problem is this uniqueness, the restrictions to just one church, and I understand that pain. I really do, believe it or not. I really do understand that conundrum when you hear us talk.
Hey, yo, I'm gonna back that up just a little bit, and I want you to pay attention to Gavin Ortlund's face, right? Because Father Jonathan, he misses everything that Gavin Ortlund said. He's thinking, and this is the thing that you have to watch out for with those who are, especially in the Orthodox Church. You know what I'm saying? Roman Catholics can be guilty of this as well. Like they hear what they want to hear and then they respond to that. So Gavin Ortlund's concern is not to claim the exclusivity. The concern that we have when we're talking to the Orthodox and the Roman Catholics is not that they just make the exclusivity claim. The problem is just that it's like this. It's like you guys, according to your documents and your doctrines and all of that stuff, you guys really don't have a leg to stand on to say that you are the one true church of anybody. With all of the issues and problems with you guys' doctrines and all of that stuff, it's like you guys are the one claiming the exclusivity, like you are the church. That's the problem. But I'm gonna back this up real quick because I want you to just pay attention to Gavin Ortlund's face, right? Because he does that quite a bit throughout this video. as these guys are talking. All right.
Dr. Gavin, when you say that
Watch his face. Watch his
the
face.
biggest problem is this uniqueness, the restrictions to just one church, and I understand that pain. I really do, believe it or not. I really do understand that.
Look at me like, yo, what are
when
you
you hear
talking
us talk about our exclusivity and how we understand that and so forth. But here's the thing that I don't think the Protestants have really addressed regarding this. If there is not an apostolic church, that the apostles, not a church that has a real link, a real connection to the church of the New Testament, to their disciples and to the disciples of those disciples, then that means the church of the New Testament died out. And that there are a bunch of competing churches out there today that are trying to make a claim and trying to make a connection and so forth. But that's going to be all artificial. It's going to be something we make up. It's going to be our attempts to try and connect with the apostolic church in the best way we see fit. What I see when I studied this, gosh, how old am I? 69. So 60 years ago, when I began looking into this, I became convinced that there was a church the apostles left behind, that there was a church that survived all their deaths, and that is false to what I tradition to you.
Well, I mean, my dad is about 70. All right, so he's about my dad's age. I mean, to be honest, I mean, he doesn't look like he's 70. I think that, when we think about somebody who's 70, we're thinking about like a walker and a cane and all of that stuff. Somebody who's like a humpback and all of that. But yeah, I mean, he looks good to be 69, almost 7 years old. All right.
I pass on to you, pass on to other men. And when I began to understand the import of that there was a church that went from generation to generation, and that they carried with them the faith and the authority and so forth that the apostles themselves received from Christ, I became so convinced of the Orthodox Church that I had left, that I had to come back to it, because that was the only way I could be in the church that I had been reading about and discovering anew. So this idea that the apostles left something that after they died, that their authority and their teachings could pass on from generation to generation, it's a very powerful argument. And when people, when you mention people seeing it today, young people especially that are attracted to it, this is one of the reasons, because we offer a connection that for which we make a very powerful argument, and people hearing it go, that makes.
No, well, see, the thing is that young people are not joining Orthodoxy because they're making like these compelling arguments. A lot of young people, a lot of these young guys are joining Orthodoxy because they're seeing guys like Jay Dyer. They're seeing some of these younger guys, and they get out here and they do these streams, and it's just a whole bunch of, slop and cope, and they see these guys on social media like X, and these guys are using foul language, and they're being like really edgy. And these guys claim to be Orthodox. So what happens is that these guys who claim to be Orthodox, when these other younger guys who's looking for identity, and let's just be honest, a lot of these guys who have daddy issues, right? Because they don't really have any real men in their lives. A lot of these guys who have daddy issues, they're looking for a community. They're looking for a sense of identity. So what happens is that even if these guys do have dads in their lives, they're disappointed with their fathers. So they go looking for a community, and they stumble across somebody online who's all edgy, and they're saying all of this, crazy stuff, all of this foolishness. Then these guys claim to be Orthodox, and then they listen to those guys, and now they become Orthodox based on that. They're not, becoming Orthodox because they're just like, oh wow, these people are like really giving some, some compelling arguments against Protestantism, and they're kind of giving us the truth of the one true church and the true faith. No, it's not that. Because the thing is that these guys, believe it or not, just talk to them long enough. They don't believe the gospel. Period. I've been proving this over and over again. These guys do not believe they don't believe the gospel. They can care nothing about Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross. Period. But I don't want to kind of go off into a spiel. All right.
Perfect sense. I'm in. And I think that's why a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, sure. So just to interact with that, I appreciate your guys' comments. I think, though, they don't hit the nerve of the issue for me, because Luther, should I call you Luther or Justin? I don't know which.
You could call me Justin. If Luther slips out, it's fine. I respond to both. That's my government name.
I'm sorry. I just want to be sure the last time I said that I had this thought in my mind if I'm calling you the wrong thing there.
No, you can respond. Yeah, I respond to both. My mom calls me Luther.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go with Justin for now that you clarified that. So you brought up theosis, apostolic succession, sacraments, a church with authority, a church with boundaries. Father Jonathan, you brought up the apostles leaving something that we have continuity with, and the church not dying. There were some other things you guys brought up as well.
And that was an
person
exhaustive.
could concede all of those points, and it would not result in the claim Eastern Orthodoxy specifically is the church. There's lots of entities that believe in all those things, including lots of Protestants. So that does not hit the issue for me.
Okay.
I could agree with all of that. I do agree that there's one church. I do agree Jesus founded a church that has living continuity over time.
Now, I want y'all to pay attention to what Gavin is saying. All right? I want y'all to pay attention to what Gavin is saying. All right? Grace and peace, Sister Michelle. Grace and peace. How you doing, sis? All right. So what Gavin is saying is that you guys is naming apostolic succession, history, tradition, and all of that stuff. And Gavin is saying that, hey, I don't have a problem with that. Okay? And he's just going to keep reiterating this and saying that I don't have a problem. Most Protestants, anybody who really takes the faith seriously, do not have a problem with anything when it comes to, apostolic succession, tradition, church history, stuff like that. What we're saying is that don't remix it and then try to make it seem like that if you're not following this remix, then there's no salvation for you. That's the biggest problem that we have as Protestants. When you start coming out here saying that, well, we're the one true church, and we just like, wait, well, hold on. You guys don't even know the gospel. You can't even explain to me what the gospel is. You don't even know the basic understanding of the gospel message. And you're gonna tell me that you're a part of the one true church? And you're gonna tell me that I'm not saved. All right. And again, I want y'all to listen to what he says. I'm gonna back it up just a little bit so we can kind of get more context. All right, here we go.
Do agree Jesus founded is restricted to Eastern Orthodoxy per se. And let me share how you might appreciate the concern. Okay, how you might appreciate how it feels.
Sure.
Imagine when a member of the true Orthodox Church comes to you and says, you're out of the church. You forfeited your canonicity, and gives all these same arguments for Jesus established a church. You have departed from this singular institution that Christ established. Considering that scenario can help you understand what it feels like to be on the receiving end of an exclusive ecclesial claim whose criteria for legitimacy are supplied by the claimant. So I know you guys may be convinced, like, yeah, Eastern Orthodoxy is clearly the winner over and against Oriental Orthodox, Roman Catholic, Anglican.
Yeah, it's circular reasoning. Yeah, we're the one true church because we say so. Basically, y'all know what we say all the time. Oh, it's trust me, bro. We're the one true church. Okay, why? Trust me, bro. Okay, what about these other people who are making this claim? Don't worry about that. Just trust me, bro. And I like the way that Gavin Ortlund is like really going, like he's being like really charitable, but he's really not pulling any punches right now. And I really respect Gavin Ortlund. These guys were out of their league, all right? Respectfully, because Gavin Ortlund does this. This is what he does. This man has a degree. I think that he's taught classes. This man got a few books, so he knows what he's talking about. So he's not just some guy. He ain't like me, just some guy on the internet just talking. Like, no, he does this for real. This man has dedicated his life to this. And I don't know what these other guys' credentials are, but I'm gonna tell you like this. I don't think that they were ready for this conversation, and they're gonna prove it in a minute.
Lutheran, and all these other ecclesial bodies. But I don't. You need to give an argument that actually demarcates the boundaries there, not criteria that would extend way more.
Exactly.
Broadly.
Yeah. So that's a great point.
Exactly, and that's what we're saying. Give an argument. Don't just make claims that, oh, we the one true church. If you're gonna say that you're the one true church, give a coherent argument for that. Give a coherent argument. Don't just make the claim. Tell us why and how.
However, I think it misses the force behind it. So, for example, if I was talking to someone that was first of all, some of the what people would call the apostolic churches, we would all agree, like, okay, yeah, like on a lot of the stuff that you mentioned, yes, there's apostolic there's historical continuity, there's apostolic succession, there, we have sacraments, things like that. And so the thing is, when we have conversations with them, the conversation becomes more narrow. If I'm talking to, and like, I have a lot of respect for the Oriental Orthodox tradition. I have a lot of respect for, but the thing is, if we're talking to someone from a particular tradition like that, that's where the conversation is different. But now when we're talking to Protestants, and specifically, you name it, whatever the specific Protestant is, that's when we can get a little bit more broad, because it's like, you don't even meet like these minimum criteria. Like, for example, apostolic succession, like I brought up earlier, already eliminates a lot of people out of the conversation. So if it eliminates a lot of people out of the conversation, then at that point, like, why am I talking?
I want y'all to realize the trick bag that he just pulled. All right. Like I always say, y'all watch for that trick bag. He just pulled the trick bag, and I'm pretty sure that some of y'all didn't even catch it. He says that Protestant churches don't even meet the minimum requirements. According to who? Whose requirements? Who made these requirements? Because they're definitely not in the church. And again, you're going to just keep hearing the same old, script. Oh, you guys don't have apostolic succession. You guys don't share the same lineage that we share, and all of this stuff here.
About the Fifth Council with you, or you name it,
because that would be your church's claim. Now we could go through apostolic succession and we could debate that issue, but my point is that doesn't establish whether Eastern Orthodoxy is the one true church.
Exactly.
But we think it does, and we think we can make that point. And something you
trust me, bro.
Could you explain how apostolic succession?
I'd love to.
Please,
Sure.
yes, explain that.
Sure, I would love to. But let me just first mention, before I go into that when you mentioned, well, there's a lot of other churches that believe in sacraments and this and that and the other thing. The problem I've seen over the years is that, for example, take sacraments. How we define those, how other people might define those, are two completely different things. It's like when you sit down with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, we believe Jesus is the Son of God. Not the way we do. And you know what I mean. If you know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses, they're essentially Arians, and Jesus is a created human being for them, just like he was for the Arians. So they use the term Son of God, but they don't mean the same thing. So whether we're talking about...
This is another trick back tactic that you got to watch out for. Oh, well, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons, they like trying to throw that out there to try to make it seem like that. Oh, well, since, those people are Protestant, they claim to be Protestant. It's like, no. It's like, don't you know that we actually speak against them more than you guys? We actually probably got more material covering those people and refuting their bad arguments than you guys do. And again, Gavin Ortlund is not arguing these points. I mean, Gavin Ortlund asked him, can you display and show how you guys can make these claims and make it make sense? That's basically what he's saying. But I'm saying it in layman's terms. And then he brings up, oh, well, it's just like, if you're sitting with a Jehovah's Witness, they're going to say that, Jesus is a God. Well, listen, first of all, we all believe that. We believe Jesus is God. We believe the Trinity. But what's the response? And again, this is another trick bag tactic to kind of avoid answering the question.
Sacraments or liturgy or apostolic succession, even, were terms that need to be defined. So you just asked, what is apostolic succession? That's something that we feel very strongly.
I didn't ask what it is. I know how you define it, but my point was, your view of apostolic succession is adhered to by multiple different churches.
Exactly.
And therefore, if that view is correct, it does not establish Eastern Orthodoxy specifically.
Not
at all. I was
sure.
inviting you to comment on that and try to explain why that would even be relevant to the claim that, for example, Eastern Orthodoxy rather than Oriental Orthodoxy is the one true church.
Yeah, can I say a quick thing about that? So if we were talking to, for example, like an Oriental Orthodox person, then we would be talking about Christology. We'd have a difference in how we understand the council, why it was accepted, why it wasn't accepted. As for someone that is, or if we're talking a Roman Catholic, we'll be talking about the papacy. We'd be talking about, authority and why we don't accept the papacy. And that's something that you and I would agree with. You as a Protestant, us as Orthodox, we would be talking about that specific point. But because we're talking to a Protestant, and not only and also a Protestant that I know you don't say that you hold to an invisible church, but in a lot of ways it seems to be that you argue for one, because
No.
you have this broad view of the
Look, he just said that. Oh well, I know that you said that you don't believe um, in an invisible church, but I know that you argue for one. And Gavin Ortlund was just like, no, that's you're misrepresenting me. This is what you get from these Orthodox guys. And I believe that this guy's a new convert because I think that he's going to say that he used to be quote unquote Calvinist, that he used to be quote unquote Reformed, but we'll talk about that later. I think that this guy is I think he's one of these guys who are, just a new convert. Grace and peace to everybody who was coming in. Listen, make sure y'all hit that like button. All right, make sure y'all hit that like button. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, especially for all my supporters who are showing up in the stream. All right, let's get back to it. Back it up just a little bit so y'all can hear what he says. All right, now watch Gavin. Gavin was going to be like, no, that you kind of misrepresent me a little bit, but go ahead.
to a Protestant, and not only and also a Protestant that I know you don't say that you hold to an invisible church, but in a lot of ways it seems to be that you argue for one, because you have this broad view of the church where you accept, Pentecostals, non-denominational, all these people are all these institutions are part of the one true church, but yet historically that doesn't even line up. Historically, no one has ever seen the church that way. And
you could tell Gavin Ortlund was getting very frustrated. And I watched a lot of his interactions with other people, but with these EO folks, he gets very frustrated. I think that they are the only ones who can really kind of get him frustrated.
Until you pass the first millennium. So this would be why we're focusing, why we're saying what we're saying, and we're not specifically saying, hey, this is why we get into this is why, because if we go through every minute detail, this would be like a 4-hour conversation.
Oh, it's not minute details. I understand what you're saying, and you're saying you tailor your conversation to the person in question, and that makes sense. But the proposed ecclesiology that is on the table here is Eastern Orthodox ecclesiology, which is exclusivist in its own way, and we're allowed to talk about where those boundaries are, even if not every one of them is at the razor edge of where I would personally disagree. So I'm allowed to point out that historically Eastern Orthodoxy in the 19th century, for example, has referred to the Roman Catholic Church as apostate and fallen away from the truth and so on and so forth. And I point to these encyclicals and observe that. We're still allowed to talk about that, even if I don't adhere to every Roman Catholic doctrine myself, because the claim on the table is Eastern Orthodoxy the one true church? Now, just to clarify, it is not that. We still have a misunderstanding about invisible.
And here's the thing. See, they can't even really get to the meat of the conversation because these guys keep misrepresenting him. And what did he just say again for the umpteenth time? You guys are making exclusivity claims that you guys are the church. Salvation is through you and you only. And they're not proving that at all. And spoiler alert, because they can't. This is the reason why I continue to do streams like this, because I want to point this out to you guys in real time. They can't defend these arguments. They just make claim and claim after claim after claim after claim after claim. It's just like the two Orthodox guys who came on my channel, what was that, a few live streams ago? No, zero sources. They didn't even know that the Confession of Docetius. And these guys, they tried to rage bait me, and I caught it. I caught it quick, and I let them do their little rage bait. And what did I do? As soon as they got done with their rage bait, I asked them a question. Okay, let's get back to this. Let's get back to this document. You tell me what that means. This is your church. All right, but I just want y'all to pay attention to what's going on here, and then misunderstanding him again, or misrepresenting him, I should say, about the invisible church claim.
Because the claim on the table is Eastern Orthodoxy the one true church? Now, just to clarify, it is not that. We still have a misunderstanding about invisible. Invisible.
No, I didn't say what I want to say. I didn't say that you believe that. I'm saying it. Well, Go ahead.
I know what you said, and
Okay.
I'm speaking to that. And I'm saying your statement doesn't reflect
Yeah,
an
he called him.
understanding of the visible, invisible.
He called him right there, and look at that. He couldn't even say anything. Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, go ahead, Gavin. Gavin Ortlund is a sharp guy. Listen, these EO and Roman Catholics, they do not want it with Gavin Ortlund. Listen, he may be a really nice guy, but that guy is super sharp. And one thing that I do notice about him is that he listens. One of the first, I think one of the first pieces of content that I saw on Gavin Ortlund before I started following him was his debate with Trent Horn. And I was very impressed on how he listened to what Trent Horn was saying. And then when it came to not the Q&A, but when it came to the cross examination, he had Trent Horn hemmed up. Trent Horn couldn't do anything during that cross examination, respectfully. But you can see how he just caught this guy up. This guy's just like, no, this is what you said. And Gavin's just like, no, that's not what I've said. And then the guy was, oh, okay, go ahead, Gavin. Go ahead, Gavin.
Distinction. And in your defense, people do this all the time, but visible and invisible has to do with being seen. It's not the same as institutional. And so the issue with Eastern Orthodoxy is restricting the church to one institution. It's not that Protestants believe in an invisible church rather than visible. We think you can see the church. Theoretically, you could count every baptized person and point to them right over there. The point is we do not restrict the church to one institution. That's where we disagree. Go ahead.
So you would say,
wait, hold on. I mean, this is where we would have to say, we're again, as I said earlier, this is where I would have to say we're speaking a different language. We don't look at the church as an institution. The church is the body of Christ, and the body of Christ cannot be divided. So if there is one body, and there can't be many bodies, there's only one body. If there is only one body of Christ, therefore there is only one church. Who is that church? Who's in it? I guess you could say who runs it and things like that. Where is it located? Who's a member of it? But there still is only one church.
Right.
The word institution really is not reflected in our theology very well at all. The idea that there's an institution, which seems to imply in the minds of people something that's man-made. The church is definitely not man-made. As I said earlier, quoting Father Alexander Schmemann, it's a mystery with sacraments. It's a mystery with liturgy and things like that. It's not an institution. It's nothing man-made. Now
it's definitely man-made. Definitely. Listen, Eastern Orthodoxy, it has sprinkles and tenets of Christianity. But I mean, like, just for instance, bowing down and kissing icons. Like, come on, man. Like that is nowhere near of what the apostles practice in the Bible. You don't even get that type of that type of thing happening in the Old Testament. So to sit back and say, "Oh, well, it's not this man-made thing," no, it is. That's why we cover this stuff. This is why I cover this stuff to point this out to show you that, hey, listen, this is not what the apostles taught. This is not biblical. This is not what Jesus Christ taught. I mean, you see all of the stuff that all of the wacky stuff that these people are doing online. You're just like, man, you know dang well that the apostles and Christ himself did not teach this stuff at all.
Man-made things that come up around it to protect it, to govern it, to administer it, and things like that. But it's not an institution. So I would shy away from that word because now I'm trying to enter into how you're defining the bait your way, and we really can't do that because again we just don't see it the same way. But here's what I would. You bring up a very good point, Dr. Gavin. I have no problem with the question being raised. Why is the Orthodox Church true Church of Christ? We go back to apostolic succession, and I know how you know it's defined, but the fact of the matter is, when we look at what, for example, the apostolic fathers have said about apostolic succession, what they keep getting back to again and again and again is two things. First of all, the bishops that hold a direct continuity with the bishop that came before them. So they are men to whom has been handed both the faith of the church to faithfully teach and pass on, as well as the governance of the church, for which hands were laid on them in direct succession going back to some apostle that ordained the first bishop someplace. Now, when we think about what the bishops were handed in terms of the faith and what they then passed on, there are characteristics of that faith that we believe we still adhere to. And to take the Roman Catholic Church as an example, we believe that the Roman Catholic Church does not anymore adhere to, for example, the issues of papal infallibility and papal superiority.
Okay, and again, for all of the Catholics who put their pom poms high and say, "Oh yeah, the Orthodox, they're our brothers." No, they're not. That they believe that you guys are the ones who basically created the Protestant mess for one for one. But they believe that you guys departed from the faith. That's what they say. They say, "Wait, nope, nope, you guys departed from us. Everything was all good until y'all showed up, until y'all wanted this papal infallibility, papal infallibility." So no, you're not brothers and sisters in the faith, according to them. They basically put you in the same boat with us.
These issues were not a part of the church of the first 1,000 years. They cropped up every now and then, but they were slapped down, and the Church of Rome accepted that, even by some of their own popes. So when we talk about what that faith is that was handed on, we're not talking about a mechanistic laying on of hands that means, oh, now you're a bishop and you can go teach whatever you want. Oh, now you're a bishop to whom this church in this city has been entrusted, and here's the faith that goes with that. You now have faithfully received this, and you have to now faithfully teach it and pass it on to the next generation. We don't believe Rome has done that again and again and again. It's clear where and when they have changed aspect of the apostolic faith, not just, for example, papal infallibility, but the way they changed the way the Eucharist was done, the way married priest. I mean,
Let's be honest. Let me see something real quick. All right. Can we honestly say, when we look at the Orthodox Church, can we say that what they're doing and how they practice and the things that they believe actually come from the Bible? I mean, do you think that we can honestly make that claim? Seriously, if just by looking at the Orthodox Church today, can we say that, and reading the Bible, reading the text of Scripture, and looking at the Orthodox Church, especially with their documents, how we read some of their documents and some of the things that they believe, can we honestly say that what they're doing was absolutely passed down from the apostles? But again, these are just a bunch of claims that this guy is making. And again, I want y'all to pay attention. But these are two guys versus one little old Gavin Ortlund. Nice guy, Gavin Ortlund, all right? He ain't up there running amok like Pedro, all right? He ain't know what Pedro at. He ain't up there like JP. Gavin Ortlund is being a nice guy, and they still cannot show exactly where or substantiate their claims, I would say, of how they believe that they are the one true church, the apostolic church that Christ passed down. And they still haven't done it yet. So they can't use the excuse of, well, we couldn't really get it out, and he was just being so mean to us. How long are we into the video? Let me see. We're into the video 32 minutes, and they still haven't showed it yet.
you could just go on and on and on. There's a very long list.
Father.
They deviated from that apostolic teaching. They've deviated from it. They no longer hold to it. It's whatever they define now. And now the God they believe in, they've defined as the same as the God the Muslims believe in. Sorry, we cannot be in communion with a church that defines the God they believe in as the same God the Muslims believe in. That is a deviation from the faith that we cannot.
Okay, now, I can't believe he said that. I wish I could pull my slides up, but that's all right. I'm going to read it to y'all. Now, remember, he just said that he believes that the Roman Catholic Church believes that they worship, or they believe that they have the same God. They worship the same God. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a quote from one of their patriarchs. All right, I've covered this before, but I wish I could pull it up on the screen so I could show it to y'all in real time. But that's all right. We gonna read it. We gonna read it right now. Let me scroll down to see where it's at. All right, here we go. This is Patriarch Parthenios of Alexandria. Now let me do this. I'm gonna back it up. I want y'all to hear this part again. Hear this part again. All right. All right, here we go.
On and on and on. There's a very long list.
Father,
They deviated from that apostolic teaching. They've deviated from it. They no longer hold to it. It's whatever they define now. And now the God they believe in, they've defined as the same as the God the Muslims believe in. Sorry.
Okay, so the God that they've defined is the same God that they say that the Muslims believe in. All right, let's let them continue.
We cannot be in communion with a church that defines the God they believe in as the same God the Muslims believe in. That
Okay, all right, hold on, what else?
is a deviation from the faith that we cannot.
Okay, that's a deviation from the faith. Y'all heard it for yourself. You guys heard it for yourself. How about we do this? And see, this is why it's important to have streams like this and to talk about this stuff. Because see, these guys will just throw stuff out there and they'll just say stuff. And if you're not up on game, it'll go right over your head. Watch this. This is Patriarch Parathenios of Alexandria. Now, he said this in 1982, the year I was born. All right. All right. He said this 44 years ago. So now this is a statement that he made in Athens, Greece. And this was in May in 1982. This is what he said, and I quote: "The Prophet Muhammad is an apostle." I'm gonna read that again. Patriarch of their church, the Orthodox Church. The Prophet Muhammad is an apostle. He is a man of God who worked for the kingdom of God, created Islam, a religion which belongs to 1 billion people. Our God is the father of all men, even of the Muslims and Buddhists, even of the Muslims and Buddhists, even of the Muslims and Buddhists. We're not done yet. Quote, "I believe that God loves the Muslims and the Buddhists." So he's not even just talking about the Muslims, he's talking about the Buddhists as well. He continues, "When I speak against Islam or Buddhism, then I am not found in agreement with God." Bro, I'm going to read that again. Let me sit up for this. He says, quote, "When I speak against Islam or Buddhism, then I am not found in agreement with God." Quote, "My God is the God of other men also. He is not only God for the Orthodox." This is my position. That's why I be telling y'all, pay attention to what these folks say. Pay attention to what they say. Now, again, let's go back to this. Let's see what Father Jonathan said. We're gonna back this up just a little bit. All right. Now we just read what a patriarch of his church said in 1982. All right, 44 years ago, about Muslims and Buddhists, not just Muslims, but Buddhists. Now let's hear what he got to say again.
They have changed aspect of the apostolic faith, not just, for example, papal infallibility, but the way they changed the way the Eucharist was done, the way married priest. I mean, you could just go on and on and on. There's a very long list.
Father.
They deviated from that apostolic teaching. They've deviated from it. They no longer hold to it. It's whatever they define now. And now the God they believe in, they've defined as the same as the God the Muslims believe in. Sorry.
Heard that. He says the same exact thing.
We cannot be in communion with the church that defines the God they believe in as the same God the Muslims believe in. That is a deviation from the faith. We cannot.
Okay, so he said that's a deviation from faith. Now, his church, his own patriarch says the exact same thing that he's trying to charge with the Roman Catholics. But he just said that their church is not a man-made institution. You heard it from his own mouth that if a person, in this case, the Roman Catholic Church, believes that the Muslims and them worship the same God, that's a deviation from the faith. So what is he telling you? The Orthodox Church is a deviation from the faith. Let me tell you like this. I've never heard anybody on the Reform side say that Muslims and Christians worship the same God. Not saying that it don't exist, but I don't know if Luther, Calvin, or Zwingli has ever said that Muslims and Christians worship the same God. You can talk about reformers and Protestants all you want. I don't know if I've ever heard a reformer, especially, say anything like that. But we the ones that deviated from the faith, and by his own mouth, he said that anybody who believes that Muslims and them worship the same God, it is a deviation from the faith. And somebody within his own church said the same exact thing. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. See, this is what happens, you guys, when you deviate from the scriptures and you think that you are a part of the quote unquote one true church just because you say so.
Tolerate. So that's just an example of what we mean by that.
So you raise a good and interesting point. You won't be surprised to know that I have agreements that Romans on. I use this word accretions for things like, priestly celibacy, a great example. My concern is I think so have the Eastern Orthodox. And but let's pare back even
you
more
could just claim that,
just to get to the nub of the issue. You raised a concern at the beginning of your comments about the word institution. Fair enough. Let's sweep the word institution off the table. The Roman Catholics, let's suppose that some of their doctrines concerning papal supremacy and papal infallibility are erroneous accretions, as you believe and as I do as well. I think they come along slowly throughout.
All right. First of all, grace and peace, Storm. Okay, cool. Hey, God is the great. God is the great physician. Okay, I just saw a super chat. I don't know, for some reason it's not showing up over here on Restream. So that's why I like my whole little setup at the house, because it shows up and then it also talks. This is what he said. He says a patriarch saying something is nor dogmatic nor doctrine, nor does it mean it's a teaching received. Learn how orthodoxy works. It's not legalistic. Okay, now again, God is the great physician. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find a way to pull that up, to try to pull up his comment. All right, let me see if I can try to pull that up. But anyway. Man, messing around with this guy. I'm all right here hitting buttons and stuff. Anyway, God is the great physician. Thanks for the super chat anyway. Okay, so Father Jonathan said that anybody who believes that Muslims worship the same God as them, they have deviated from the faith. Do you agree with that? That's what I want to know. Yes or no? Do you agree with that? Because if you say that you agree with that, then you got to say that the patriarch, right? Patriarch Parthenios of Alexandria back in 1982, you got to say that this guy has deviated from the faith. So who's the one that's in error? Because they both can't be right. Right? They both can't be right. Somebody said that one is deviating from the faith. It says that the other is one or the other is deviating from the faith. So who has deviated from the faith? Who's in the right and who's in the wrong? See? Right checks that you're behind can't cash. So that's what the old folks used to say. Let me see if he's gonna respond to that. Oh, wait, hold on. How come I didn't see this? Here it is right here. There we go. See? So he said that the patriarch saying something, nor dogmatic, nor doctrine, nor does it mean it's a teach and receive. Okay, so did he deviate from the faith according to Father Jonathan? Did he deviate from the faith, or was he still in the faith? All right, just a question.
church history through aggrandizing, growing power, and other things like priestly celibacy. You and I both agree on that. So then the question is, are they not a part? You and I also agree there's only one church. Then the question is, are the Catholics a part of the church or not? And if not, at what point did that cease? Okay. One of the reasons I think we need to get into shades of gray here in our ecclesiology a little bit, because if you get to a point where you're looking at any error and saying, therefore, it's not a part of the one church, I think we're all into trouble. And I think maybe the best way for our discussion to go forward, since you guys have hit apostolic succession so squarely, is just to look at that and say, is apostolic succession itself, in its tight and technical sense, apostolic? Is that something the apostles could have possibly recognized?
Yes.
And I would say there's not a shred of evidence for that. If you
that
look
is
at the
false.
first century from the New Testament, well, let's see some evidence that any apostle ever distinguished the office.
And it is at this moment where this Orthodox guy got cooked. I'm going to back this up just a little bit. I want y'all to hear this, because this guy, he's basically calling Gavin Ortlund a liar. Now watch this.
Apostolic succession so squarely is just to look at that and say, is apostolic succession itself, in its tight and technical sense, apostolic? Is that something the apostles could have possibly recognized?
Yes.
And I would say there's not a shred of evidence for that. If you
that
look
is
at the first
false.
century,
He said that's false. He said that's false. Ooh-wee. Yeah, he kind of Hey, listen, I'm already hating this right here. I'm not even on the screen, and this thing right here is acting up. I'm trying to scroll up to God is the great physician. I'm trying to get back up to his thing. I don't like this. I really don't. Can I make this like smaller or something? How can I do this? I'm trying to find a way. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see. Do I need to make this smaller? Let me see something. Yeah, I may have to try to make my screen smaller, but then it gets harder for me to read. Anyway, this is what God is the great physician said. He says, Rome is a dogmatic teaching. The other isn't. It's one patriarch saying something that isn't taught doctrine or dogma. His opinion would be deviation. Okay, so all right, so he's saying that the patriarch. Now here's a guy on the internet. Okay, a guy who doesn't show his face on the internet, but he's giving us super chats though, so we can't be too hard on him now. You know, he been dropping some coins in that collection plate. So, so I'm I'll be charitable, but if you're, fair question, you're just a guy on the internet. This guy was a patriarch over a whole section, Greece to be exact. So his area was Greece back in 1982. He was a patriarch back then. So how can you say that he deviated from the faith? Based on what? Based on what Father Jonathan said? You see what I'm saying? Just like Storm Ready said, that's going to be my next question. So the leaders can say anything. So apparently, Storm Ready, you can say whatever you want. And the Roman Catholics, they kind of play this game as well. They'll say, oh, well, it's not dogma. So that means that they can say whatever they want. And it's okay as long as they don't dogmatize it. But if they turn around and dogmatize it, then it's just like, oh, well, that's my church says so, therefore. So you got a father who's not even a patriarch saying that anybody who believes that Islam and Muslims worship the same God, saying that if anyone who says that, they've deviated from the faith, but then you got a patriarch who says this, and you're trying to say that a whole patriarch deviated from the faith? I don't think that he's aware of that statement.
From the New Testament, well, let's see some evidence that any apostle ever distinguished the office of bishop and presbyter, with only bishop being the successor through a laying on of hands.
Well, the issue is that, so what's happening is that's the synonymity claim, which we reject. And it's also important to note, like, you can see it right in the New Testament. So for example, Well, before I say what I'm about to say about apostolic succession, if possible, we can
Yo, look at Gavin Ortlund. Yo, watch his face again. Because remember, he basically just called him a liar. He said that Gavin Ortlund is lying about apostolic succession. And what Gavin Ortlund is saying, he's saying, show me where presbyter, what do you say? He says, show me where.
From the New Testament, well,
Right.
let's see some evidence that any apostle ever distinguished the office of bishop and presbyter, with only bishop being the successor through a laying on of hands.
Right. Okay. So that's what he's saying. So you have two types of people. You got bishop and you got presbyter. So you got a bishop and a presbyter, but they say that, oh, well, succession is only passed down by the bishops, and Gavin Ortlund is pressing him on that. He's saying, show that. And this is where it started getting good right here. So I'm gonna try to talk less. I don't know. I can't make that promise, but I'm gonna try to hush.
Well, the issue is that, so what's happening is that's the synonymity claim, which we reject. Like, we don't grant that. And it's also important to note, like, you can see it right in the New Testament. So, for example, well, before I say what I'm about to say about apostolic succession,
just look at Gavin. Look at Gavin.
We can park Roman Catholicism for another day. It doesn't mean that it's not important. However, you know, if we want to chat with Eric Ibarra, we can. We're chatting with you, and so we want to focus on the claim, because the idea of this claim that there's and forgive me for using this word, Father Jonathan, but multiple institutions within the one true church. I know that's not our terminology, but just to speak language Gavin understands for a second. So we would reject that this idea that Pentecostals without bishops, and to go back again, you name it, all these different groups who don't have authority that links back to the apostles is an actual church. And that's what we reject. Now to the evidence for apostolic succession. You have, I mean, clearly we would say Timothy and Titus are an example of that. Timothy
Where are they
being
called
a bishop, or Timothy being a bishop in Ephesus. Right.
Where is that ever stated?
Hold on, I'm gonna get there. So it's not
Well,
necessarily
an example of the point.
Yeah, no, it's not that
Yeah,
it is
source
stated
up.
verbatim. We don't treat.
Yeah, source up. And you see what he said. Well, it's not like they're stating it verbatim. So again, just talking. It's just talking. He's not really sourcing up. He's not showing anything. He's just talking. He's just, oh, well, Timothy was a bishop. Says who? Who says? Who says? Well, it doesn't say it verbatim. Watch. Just listen. Pay attention, y'all. Pay attention. So, and I want you guys to remember this argument, okay? Because you're going to hear this again. Hear what these people are saying. And actually, I think Gavin Ortlund, he's going to list a resource, and I've already got that in my notes. And I'm just like, yeah, I just need to add that to my slides. Because he's saying that Timothy was a bishop. Now, remember, this is the same guy who called Gavin Ortlund a liar.
Right?
Where is that ever stated?
Where's the stated, brother?
I'm gonna get there. So it's not
Well,
necessarily
an example of the point.
Yeah, it's not that it is stated verbatim. We don't treat
Look at Gavin.
like we don't treat everything like that, right? But you can see it in the New Testament. They've been given the authority by Paul to lay hands on elders and have pretty much to ordain, to have elders, right, in city to city. The same thing with Titus. Now, Eusebius, who even you yourself would say is the greatest church historian, he himself even claims and says that Titus was a bishop of Ephesus, literally. And it's not just him. Like, there's many people from the apostolic era. James was the first bishop of Jerusalem. You know what I mean? And you have succession lists in Rome.
Look at Gavin.
Documented by Irenaeus.
You're already in his bag. See, he just like me. Gavin, get ready to pull the sources up. See, that's why I'll be making them slides. Because I'll be like, people just be talking. I'll be like, okay, let's pull this stuff up. And this guy, he's just talking, well, Eusebius said, and then this person is, okay. And Gavin is just like, all right, we gonna see about that.
By Jerome. So this is something this is clearly bleeding into the apostolic era. This is not even like controversial.
Look at Gavin.
So if you have apostles,
he's like, what is this dude talking
laying on
about?
hands and century, like, and then on top of that, to park that aside, even throughout the centuries, 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th, you keep going down the line, you will see.
Wait, hold on. I gotta back that up. Look at Gavin's face. Gavin is just like, what is this dude talking about? Just look at his face. Watch his face. Storm ready. Oh, let me go up a little bit. Go to Storm ready. Storm ready's comment. See, I don't like this restream. See, I can't scroll the way I want to. Oh gosh. I got a job calling me. Hold on. Let me let this play.
Irenaeus, documented by Eusebius, documented by Jerome. So this is something that this is clearly bleeding into the apostolic era virtual. So if you have apostles laying on hands and pretty much like we have bishops within the first century, like, and then on top of that, to park that aside, even throughout the centuries, 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th, you keep going down the line, you will see bishops. There's a threefold ministry. Bishops are the only people that can ordain, right? You never see a presbyter ordain. You never will see a deacon ordain. That's like unheard of, right? Until like, yeah, go ahead. You can jump in.
Okay, let me make two comments here. First of all, in my chapter on apostolic succession in my book, What It Means to Be Protestant, I survey the scholarship on this topic and the data, and I would just refer viewers to that. I think you're making assertions about Timothy and Titus, but they are itinerant apostolic delegates.
You have to make an actual argument. That's what you think.
But I'm showing you. They were not itinerant.
I let you unpack your thoughts. Let me unpack one in response.
Sure.
So I just said I'd refer people to my chapter in the book where I lay out a full argument. I'm observing right now. My summary claim there is they're never called bishops, nor do they function in the way that bishops function within a framework of apostolic succession. So this mechanical view of where valid Eucharists are, and then restricted to contexts where you have one bishop, that is not in the New Testament. And frankly, if you're saying that's not controversial, I mean, that would basically be close to a scholarly consensus. There are
boom right there. I'm sorry, y'all. I had the job call me, and see, the whole time I've been here, right? Haven't had nobody call me. And as soon as I go live, first time I go live, I get a call, an emergency call. But I don't have to go anywhere. I can continue to keep letting this play, but I got to make a quick phone call. But I want y'all to see the trick baggery that's going on. And look at the way that Gavin is just, he's just laying it out there. Now, remember, this guy called Gavin a liar. Now, remember, he's talking to lying Gavin Ortlund.
Some people who nibble at the details, but you'll find lots of Roman Catholic scholars, for example, saying this isn't even a discussion anymore. We know that presbyter and bishop were distinct offices well into the 2nd century because we've got so much abundant converging data from the Shepherd of Hermas to the various other apostolic fathers. I cite all of this data to the New Testament where the two terms are clearly used interchangeably. Yeah. And if I could just get my second point.
Sure.
Even if apostolic succession were the criterion by which we discern the one true church, the reason Roman Catholicism is so profoundly relevant to our discussion as Protestant to Eastern Orthodox is because then you still have the question, who are the correct successors of the apostles? You have so many different churches claiming our bishops are the real successors of the apostles of that same theology. Now, for me as a Protestant, the reason Catholics are relevant is because I think they're Christians, just as I think the Oriental Orthodox are Christians, just as I think High Church Anglicans are Christians, because let's take the word institutional off the table, I'm responding to where I see Christianity. And so the 2 points here in summary.
And again, now I want y'all to see what Gavin is saying, right? I want y'all to see what Gavin is saying. Gavin is just like, okay, so the reason why we bring up the Roman Catholic Church is because they basically make the same claim. And he's just like, yo, I believe that they're Christians. And he's just like, but these other churches are claiming apostolic succession, and they got a whole totally different list of bishops. So what makes you guys more special than the rest of these other churches and these other people who claim that they have apostolic succession, right? What makes you guys more special than everyone else? Just like Workman said, grace and peace, brother. He says he should let his handler talk. He trying to show off and he's getting cooked. And the thing is, let me tell y'all something. See, Father Jonathan don't know this stuff. The only thing that's happening with Father Jonathan right now is that he's watching a lot of these young guys join his church, and he's trying to appease these people. He's trying to appease these young guys. Father Jonathan don't know this stuff because if he did, he would have hopped in a long time ago. Father Jonathan is the equivalent of just like some random pastor, right? He's like your random pastor Jim Bob who don't even know about church history and the church documents and all of that stuff. He don't really know. He's just some guy in the parish who is linking up with these young guys on these streams. He doesn't. What does he know about this stuff? Because if he knew something, and if he knew what Gavin was talking about, he would have been stopped Gavin a long time ago and say, "Oh, wait, hold on, let me pause you right there." But he can't do it because he doesn't know. That's why I just be like, yo, don't be intimidated by these Orthodox guys, because a lot of them, all they're gonna do is quote a whole bunch of their script, and they're gonna poke their chest out and they're gonna talk loud, and the whole time they're gonna be wrong and strong. But just let them talk. Let them talk. And especially if you know what you're talking about when it comes to the Bible, you don't even have to learn all of this church history and all of this stuff. Just learn what thus saith the Lord. That's why they don't want to go to the scriptures. That's why they don't, soul scripture, this, that, and the third. Yeah, because you know why? Because they cannot win that argument. Grace and peace, Brother Tony.
Which I'd invite you both to address is, first of all, I think there's a bit of naivety about how many historical and textual problems there are for apostolic succession. Second of all, I just, there's not a shred of evidence for that from the first century.
I literally just gave you evidence from Eusebius, the greatest church historian.
I just said from the first century. Eusebius is writing 300 years.
He's writing 300 years, but he's documenting. He's.
Bro, I hope y'all hearing this. He brings up Eusebius, and he's just like, yo, Eusebius comes 300 years after the fact. He's like, show me somebody in the first century. That's what he's saying. He's like, yo, show me somebody in the first century who believe in this apostolic succession. He can't. Well, I brought up Eusebius. He's just like, no, he's like, Eusebius 300 years later. What are you talking about?
I think we can.
Era.
Okay, I think we can.
So what is he? Is it because he's from the 4th century now he's not credible to you?
No, but I think all of us, we take Eusebius as one testimony. So what I'm doing in my chapter, in my book, I'm taking all of the data.
Eusebius also, you are referencing modern scholarship, which has been proven to be wrong before. And
actually, you interrupted before I got to say what I was going to say.
I apologize. Go ahead.
We take all of the data, not just contemporary scholarship. We take the 1st century data. We take the 2nd century data, starting with Ignatius, moving forward. We take the 3rd century data. We take the 4th century data. The scholarship can help us read that data. I think that's sensible and true and actually common in the scholarship that there's not any evidence for apostolic succession in its technical definition, which involves at least 4 tenets, including the distinction between presbyter and bishop is by apostolic appointment. Bishops only are the successors of the apostles. Bishops receive their ordination through the laying on of hands, and valid Eucharists are restricted to that context. What we observe is you look at the data and you see that idea takes a long time to develop. Pointing to Timothy and Titus, who are never called bishops and don't, several of those points don't even come into the picture in pastoral epistles. Doesn't even get you 5% of the way. What you need is some evidence for the purported view on the table. Go ahead.
Before I say something, Father, I know you kind of butted in for a second.
Yeah, Did you want to say Father. Something? No, get on in there, Father. Help your boy out. Go ahead and take a sip. Go ahead and take a sip, Gavin. Listen, Gavin was cooking. Gavin was cooking up here. And I know Gavin, he kind of don't like that language, but I'm going to use it. He was cooking because these guys, they don't, again, listen, this is what I said earlier. Gavin does this. This man is a scholar. I don't care what anyone says. This man is a scholar. He does this for a living. You know, respectfully, he's not a guy who's just a father of a parish, of a local parish. He's not, respectfully, a guy that's on YouTube. Y'all save those conversations for people like me. All right? I'm nowhere near where Gavin is, but see, these are conversations that they're supposed to be having with people like me. So it can be an even playing field. This is not fair. This is a 2v1 right now, and Gavin Ortlund is just handling both of them. But see, this is what happens when you know what you're talking about. When you know what you're talking about, you can go and have these conversations with confidence. And you could be sipping water just like this, just like Gavin Ortlund doing right now. All right, let's go.
Yeah. I want to bring up some quotes, and I want us to maybe try and use these quotes from primary sources as a way of directing our discussion toward this end. I am greatly suspect toward anybody who calls themselves an academician in this area. I don't believe a lot of it is good. I don't think a lot of it is correct. And certainly there's...
Listen to this. Okay, so now we're questioning the scholarship. Now, see, he had no problem before talking about scholarship. And that's the thing with these guys. See, they love quoting the scholar. They love quoting the scholars. Oh, let's quote the scholars. I mean, you know, let's bring on some of your Protestant scholars and this, that, and the third. Grace and peace to my sister, Akila Johnson. Blood sister, she's up in the house. But see, this is what these guys do. See, I want y'all to pay attention to this part right here. So now we got to question the scholars. Watch this. Just watch, y'all. Got to shift that goalpost.
And I am greatly suspect toward anybody who calls themselves an academician in this area. I don't believe a lot of it is good. I don't think a lot of it is correct. And certainly there is bias in a lot of what some people will write.
Oh, it's not good, and it's all bias. Oh, so the academics and the scholars. It's bias now, y'all. God is a great physician. Thank you for the super chat. Once again, he says Ignatius in 107 AD gives the threefold office, and I think that he is. I think Gavin touches on this. I think he's going to touch on this in a minute, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
For example, there are people in the Orthodox Church that have pointed out that Philip Schaff's translations of the Nicene, post-Nicene, ante-Nicene fathers is not very good. It's very suspect in some areas. I don't want to go down that road.
Okay, now what he's talking about, he says Philip Schaff's translations are not that good of the ante-Nicene fathers. Now, I want to put this in perspective. Now, you guys know when the slides that I bring up and the quotes from the church fathers, that is a translation from Philip Schaff. So when you see me bringing up the slides and then I got the resources at the bottom, or even when I'm in my Logos software and I pull up the original quote from the fathers, that is translated by Philip Schaff, who's a Protestant. His people are not doing that. Right? Father Jonathan's people are not translating this stuff. So who else is translating this correctly? Because he's saying that Philip Schaff, some of his translations are bad. So where's the good translations? Spoiler alert, he's not going to tell us. He's just going to make the claim that it is.
Specifically, I'm just saying some people will point to that and say, just as translations of the Gospels can be interpreted a different way and thus mean a different thing, so you have people who have interpreted the church fathers a certain way. I've come across the...
Okay, trick bag. This is trick bag alert. Okay, so he's trying to, and I want y'all to see what he's doing. He's trying to equate bad translations with, or he's trying to equate translation period with interpretation. You see what I'm saying? So he's trying to say that translations and interpretations are the same thing. No, translations and interpretations are two totally different things. If I speak, let's just say if I'm speaking Spanish, right? I speak Spanish, or if I write something in Spanish, I write a book in Spanish, and one of you guys come along and you translate what I said in Spanish into English, you're going to say, okay, well, this is what Alton said while he was speaking Spanish. So I'm going to write it in English so you can read what he said. That's translation. Interpretation is me talking to you guys and somebody goes and they say, yeah, Alton was doing a live stream and he was reviewing this video with Gavin Ortlund, and when he said the word trick bag, right? And you're kind of just like saying that, yeah, you know, he used the word trick bag, and Alton always used the word trick bag in place of somebody who's trying to run game or somebody's trying to be deceptive or anything like that. That's an interpretation. It's not a translation. So what he's trying to say was that, oh, well, since Philip Schaff has bad, or some people say that he has bad translations, that means that he's interpreting it wrong. No, he's not interpreting anything. He's only translating what was already wrote in the original language, and now he's translating it to English so we can read what was actually written, I would say. All right, let's continue.
The various different commentaries on that. But what I'd like to do, so that we have something that we can talk about here, is I'd like to talk about some of these quotes. And here's the first point I want to make, and to our viewers watching this, keep this in mind. If the date, for example, of of St. Clement here, date is correct, of 95 AD, and I've not come across any legitimate scholar that says it's not. And if the date on Ignatius's writings at 110 are firm and legitimate and so forth, people who would say, well, there is no distinction between bishops and presbyters and deacons going way into the 2nd century and so forth, are neglecting what they themselves said. So in the year 95, for example, Clement said this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. They appointed their first converts after testing them by the Spirit to be the bishops and deacons of future believers. So here we have something that says, you have the apostles, which is in the first sentence, look around the second or third line. Thus both came in proper order by the will of God. And so the apostles, after they had received their orders and in full assurance by reason of the resurrection, went out in the conviction of the Holy Spirit, preaching and so forth. And this is where it says, and they appointed, as a part of their preaching and travels and so forth, converts who became the first bishops and deacons and so forth. Now, if he says this in the year 95, they weren't doing this beginning in the year 95. They were already doing this, and Clement is reporting on this essentially. And then he also adds a little bit later in chapter 42, that they appointed those mentioned above, and afterward added the stipulation that if these should die, other approved men, like Paul said to Timothy, should succeed to their ministry. Those, therefore, who were appointed by them or afterward by other reputable men with the consent of the whole church are being, and then he goes on to talk about a problem in the Corinthian church. But then Ignatius, the same thing, as there is one bishop.
One at a time, Father, or do you want to do them all? My concern is if you go through all the quotes.
I'm not going to. I'm not. You want to talk about Clement?
I would love to, but I don't want to interrupt your train of thought if you want to do Clement and Ignatius together or one at a time.
No, we'll do Clement. Let's start with him.
Okay. Clement is one of the reasons I'm a Protestant. Now, the date of his first epistle is disputed, but 95 is a great median. Look at the quote. Bishops and deacons. 2 offices. He goes on right after this to interpret those 2 offices as fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. Later in the letter, he uses, in chapter 44, he uses the term bishop and presbyter interchangeably. And further, he always refers to the holders of this office in the church in Corinth as in the plural, and he calls them presbyters as well. This is part of the converging.
All right, here we go. We got Mac Dan with that cape on. To the rescue. Got Mac Dan on with that cape. He got that cape tied tight. Well, I don't know how tight it is right now. All right, he just got here. We're gonna see how tight it is in a minute. All right, look at that defender. Yeah, I had to make a quick phone call. So I've already seen this. So and I know they're talking about the presbyter and all of that. But yeah, Gavin Ortlund was cooking in this video. All right, let's continue.
Cumulative and overwhelming first century data.
Overwhelming. That's an interpretation.
You're interrupting. Let me finish at least the sentence, and then you can explain.
He can't help himself. See, this is what happens when it seems like this is what happens when you become Roman Catholic or Orthodox. You know, it's like your spirit just, that spirit just won't settle down when you hear truth, especially when it's coming from a Protestant. See, when it's coming from a nasty, filthy Protestant like us, oh, that spirit go to bubbling up and riling up. Oh, you can't, oof, They can't sit still. They can't sit still.
Why you don't find it overwhelming. I'll explain why I do find it overwhelming with most scholars. It's overwhelming because all of the data from the first century indicates 2 offices in the church, one of them deacon, the other called by multiple terms, including presbyter and bishop. They are appointed with the approval of the entire church. The terms bishop and presbyter are used interchangeably in chapter in this text as in others. And that's true of all the data. That's true of the entire New Testament. Every church in the book of Acts, appoint presbyters, appoint presbyters, appoint presbyters. In the New Testament, you have qualifications lists for the offices of the church. There are 2 lists. The one in Titus 1 and the one in 1 Timothy 3. One for bishop, one for presbyter. Guess what? They're the exact same, or almost the exact same. They're unmistakably parallel, and the term bishop and presbyter is used interchangeably in that list, just as it is here. So I am, to show that this is not me who alone, this is not Gavin, the Protestant apologist, who finds this evidence overwhelming. Let me read to you a quote of my own from a Roman Catholic scholar who has no desire to undermine his own ecclesiology.
Sure.
And right before we get to that, we got to read the super chat. Listen, God is the great physician. Thank you for the super chats. Listen, man, y'all gonna let the ops come in here and outdo y'all with the super chats? Dang, the ops coming in here. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. Listen, I appreciate any support. Let me see what God is the great physician say. He says Saint Vladimir Seminary, SVS, Press, Holy Apostles Convent, the Bible and the Holy Fathers for Orthodox, all better than Shaft. I may have to look that up. But see, at the same time, I mean, is it going to say anything different? That's what I want to know. Mac Dan says outs and bias on full display, like he's never had props over talking on his panel many times. No, because you guys like to filibuster. I mean, you say 3 sentences and already y'all let me speak. Oh man, you know, we say 1 sentence and then y'all go on for like 6 minutes talking. All right, let's go.
Quote, Clement made no claim to write as bishop. His letter was sent in the name of the whole Roman community. He never identifies himself or writes in his own person. The letter itself makes no distinction between presbyters and bishops, about which it always speaks in the plural, suggesting that at Corinth, as at Rome, the church at this time was organized under a group of bishops or presbyters rather than a single
SC, don't worry about it, man. Listen, SC, I'm just playing when I say that stuff, all right? I'm just playing, you know. When I be saying stuff like, "Will a man rob God?" and all of that, I'm just joking. Okay, y'all shouldn't be, you know, compelled to, you know, get. I mean, the Lord is blessing me, but I mean, but what y'all do? I mean, that's an extra blessing now, all right? You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna block no blessing. Now, if y'all want to keep on blessing, then bless. but don't do it out of compulsion. All right.
Later, this was still so in Rome. That's one of about 25 quotes from others outside of Protestantism noticing this, because it says bishops and deacons, not bishops, presbyters, and deacons. That distinction begins to emerge with Ignatius, and then from Ignatius forward, you trace out its development. So this data from Clement is part of why I, along with most scholars, take the view that...
Wait, hold on. Who was that who was bringing up Saint Ignatius earlier? I think that was God's great physician. Yeah, I think he was the one bringing that up earlier. Oh, here it is. Saint Ignatius and 107 AD gives threefold office. And Gavin Ortlund is really chopping it down right now.
I do. Namely, that the apostolic pattern was 2 offices in the church. And we just look at the pastoral epistles, we look at the qualifications for those offices, and it's right there. I'd love to hear why you don't find that overwhelming. And I'd love to hear more than just the fact that Timothy and Titus are appointing elders, which is not...
Dr. Gavin, can you repeat what you said about Clement 40, chapter 44? I want to understand you correctly.
Sure.
Now, I was just going to say, he's basically saying that Clement is...
No, I want to hear him say it, Justin. I want to hear Dr. Gavin say it.
Yes, in chapter 44, and then I've made this case again. You guys could read my book, and
no, I've read it. That's why.
Well, then you could interact with what I say there.
Right, exactly. If you read the book,
just
interact with what's being said. Oh yeah, I read it. No, you didn't. Because if you did, you would be able to interact with what he said instead of just saying, well, you know, Timothy was a bishop. According to who?
Respect Father Jonathan, let him ask you what he's asking you. And
yeah, well, I'm just saying, if people want the fuller cases there, but what most scholars think, like Eamon Duffy, who I just cited, like Francis Sullivan and others, is that there's the term presbyter and bishop are used interchangeably in the first epistle of Clement, because the whole occasion for this letter is deposed officers in the church, and they're spoken of always in the plural, and they're referenced as...
Okay, Doctor.
Go ahead.
Dr. Gavin, this is chapter 44 of Clement to the Corinthians. This is chapter 44 right here. I don't see anywhere here. Maybe you can point it out to me. Maybe I read it too quickly and didn't see it. Where does it say that bishops and presbyters are being used interchangeably?
It may be chapter 42. Let me just pull up my notes here so I can get this.
All right, okay, I got that. That's 44, 43. Here's 42 right here.
Well, that text is too small for me to read, so I don't know.
Let me make it bigger.
I want y'all to pay attention because this Father Jonathan guy, he really think he got something. He really thinks he got something, but it's all right. We're gonna see how Gavin Ortlund deals with this in a minute.
And go to, let's start with chapter 44, and then if that's not what you're looking for, we can go to chapter 42. But
Okay, here's 44.
And I still can't read that. That's extremely small on my screen.
No. Well, as I read it, I really don't see anything here.
This is it. This is 44. The first sentence says the episcopate, and then the blessing in the end is blessed are those presbyters. That is why even if he is saying the letter itself makes no distinction between presbyters and bishops. Those are his words. So that is not unique to me. That's how this is commonly read.
By some, because there are those who say this is very clear. So there's clearly, even with academicians, there's a difference in how they read this and interpret it, just like how people read and interpret the Bible.
Okay, wait.
Different.
Okay, so he's trying to say that there are people in academia who read this a way that aligns with how he views apostolic succession. But didn't he just say like 5-10 minutes ago that he doesn't trust academia? So now we're trusting academia because you think that you got something. But then when you know that you don't have anything, now you want to, well, we shouldn't be trusting the scholars. You see how the goalposts get shifted and they be flip-flopping and stuff like that? Now y'all see why I use the term trick bag? Because that's what this is. 1 minute, it's okay, let's use the scholars. Next minute, no, let's not use the scholars. And then again, well, let's use the scholars. Yeah, let's use the scholars again.
Understandings of what the scriptures say based on how they read it, not to mention what translation they use. But you're talking about the episcopate in the first sentence and presbyters later on. I don't see how one necessarily infers that the other is interchangeable. That's an interpretation of what the text is saying.
It's by far the majority interpretation, and the reason is the logic of the sentence is blessed are those presbyters. For him to introduce a new office at this point would be completely alien to the context when he's just said that the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy is 2 offices, 2 chapters earlier. This is the fundamental point, is that we're here talking about apostolic succession, one point of which is the distinction between presbyter and bishop, though not the only one. But that point itself, I mean, if the first quote I'm asked to review, it's supposedly in favor of that, actually says, there's 2 offices in the church.
But I'm not just trying to be difficult. I don't see it. I don't see that just because one sentence mentions the episcopate and another sentence toward the bottom mentions presbyters, that one is necessarily a synonym or an alternate to the other. Here's chapter 42, and they're talking about Christ was by these, then we're made an orderly will.
Yeah. While you're looking for
this is the one that I had on the slide earlier, that bishops and deacons of those who should afterwards believe. Nothing was mentioned here about presbyters, for example. I mean, It's mentioned in 44, but not here.
That's the concern. I mean, let me ask you this: how many offices are in the church?
Can I say something real quick? I'm sorry, I've been trying to say this for a little minute.
Go ahead.
Well, I do want to
come back to my question then.
Got to answer that.
I do want to concede.
See, he asked a direct question. How many offices are in the church? Well, let me ask you another question. Yeah, that's why Gavin was just like, we're going to get back to that question, brother. We need y'all to get back to that question. We need answers.
Go ahead.
Well, I do want to
come back to my question then.
Okay. I do want to concede that their terms can be used interchangeably. And I don't think that a term being, so like, for example, like the college and university, for example, like someone could use college and university to refer to, kind of the same thing, but no one would say that all all colleges are universities. I'm sorry, I may have gotten that backwards. All universities are colleges. Does that make sense? And you have community colleges or something like that. So yes, we can say that presbyter can be used like almost like as a term that can function not so much as an office, but can almost be used in the same sense like a minister. But no one would say, like, for example, bishops are ministers, presbyters or elders are ministers, and deacons are ministers. But we would never say a deacon is a bishop. You know what I mean? And so the thing is that what Father Jonathan and I are saying is we're looking at we're looking at the evidence. How are these specific people in these offices? How are what are they doing? And what we're saying what they're doing is equivalent to what a bishop does, and a presbyter cannot do that same thing. So, for example, bishops, whether it's excommunication, right? You have St. Paul in 1 Corinthians, literally kicking, he has someone out of the church, right? He says,
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't like this laptop thing because I don't really have control like that. Screens be flying all over the place. But here's the thing. He's really not answering Gavin's question. He's not asking how many offices do they have. And I want to go back to what he's saying. See, he's saying,
what are they doing? And what we're saying,
let's go
how
back.
are the thing is that what Father Jonathan and I are saying is we're looking at we're looking at the evidence. How are these specific people in these offices? How are what are they doing? And what we're saying what they're doing is equivalent to what a bishop does, and a presbyter cannot do that same thing. So,
Okay, so he's saying that according to what the way his church does it now is how he's reading what his church does back into the text of scripture instead of just letting the scripture speak for itself. So what he's saying is that, well, see, when we read back in the scripture, especially about like Timothy and we're talking about like the bishops and see the way that they're doing certain things. See, that's the way that we do it in our church. And Gavin Ortlund is just like, no, there's not these, these different.
So, for example,
whole bunch of these
bishops, whether it's
offices.
excommunication, right? You have St. Paul in 1 Corinthians, literally kicking, he has someone out of the church, right? He says, and you have also Paul, pretty much, laying hands on people and giving them a gift, conveying a gift, which is so in our understanding, they're actually conveyed through the laying on of hands. But I don't want to get too far from the weeds.
Gavin.
And I brought up Timothy and Titus because they're there doing what bishops do, where they are ordaining. And you even have it where I want to say Timothy is told by, and I could pull it up here. Timothy is told by Paul, do not receive an act. This is 1 Timothy 5:19. Do not receive an accusation against an elder except by 2 or 3 witnesses. Those who are sinning, rebuke in the presence of all, and the rest of all may fear. So you have here Saint Timothy.
Look, you guys. You see him. How many times I gotta tell y'all and show to you guys what happens when you don't read the text of scripture? When you abandon a scripture, this is what happens. He's scrambling to try to find a text to support his argument. Listen, the Bible is not this book that you use to win arguments. That's the issue. That's the difference between us and the Roman Catholics and the Orthodox. We don't use the Bible so we can win arguments and try to support our view. We try to align ourselves with what the text say. That's what people can mock sola scriptura all you want. But at least we're attempting to try to find a way to align ourselves with that book. These people want to take the book because it's nothing but ink on the page to them. And Pedro exposed that when I had the 2 Orthodox guys on the channel not too long ago. We were talking about eternal security. Not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, about 2 weeks ago. That book doesn't mean anything to these folks. And I know some people, they're going to get offended, but I got to be truthful. You've seen it. You're watching it in real time. He's trying to support the way that his church do things, and he's scrambling to find scripture to try to support what the way that his church has done things. And it's okay if you okay, our church has set these things up because this is what works for our particular church structure. But see, the problem is that they said that no, we're the one true church. So if you're the one true church, you got to be able to back those claims up with the text of scripture, and they can't do it. He can't do it. That's why you see him fumbling and bumbling. He don't know what he's talking about. But he has to back that claim up that we're the one true church. And see, what always happens is that when these people are making these claims and they're trying to back it up with the scripture, this usually runs its course. I've seen it happen too many times with different groups of people who claim to be God's chosen people and all of this stuff here, and they're constantly trying to use the scripture, they're constantly trying to use the text to back it up. And when they get tired of doing that, they finally wash their hands and they go move on to something else. And then now Christianity was bad is evil, and I used to be a Christian, and then I found this other thing, and that's how you get those people. That's how you get the atheists and the agnostics and the people who's into universalism and all of that stuff. That's how you get that stuff. Because these people go running off into something weird and wacky, and they're trying to support it with the text. And when the text doesn't support it, and when they finally realize that, oh, nah, I'll just walk away from God. I'll just walk away from the faith. Now watch them quoting scriptures all out of context.
Is presented by St. Paul as a judge of whom the people go to, and basically has the power to decide fate of someone that. So you take into consideration this idea of bishops are the only people who can ordain, this form of excommunication. And then not only that, I know you brought up scholarship, and I do want to agree with you. I do want to concede, like, yes, majority of scholarship does hold to the synonymity claim, which is in question, right? It's about explanatory power. Yes, they can hold to the synonymity claim, but what has the most explanatory power? And I think our position does, because the synonymity claim can't be proven. It's a claim, so this is a book, Eusebius, literally he goes through, I mean, all the blue pinnings here are all the people, and many of them, whether it's Mark, who has the Diocese of Alexandria, right? He was along with Peter. You have, you name it. Clement is mentioned here. We have succession lists, not just by Eusebius, even though he's the greatest church historian. So if you are to reject Eusebius
right now,
but like, give me something. Why is he wrong? Like, what did he not understand? Even though he was the greatest historian of his time, what was him? And
Gavin literally told you why. And he done mentioned it like 8 times. And he's just going to turn around and just say, oh, well, why? Why was Eusebius wrong? He mentioned that like 30 minutes ago.
Irenaeus and all these people that have succession lists, even when they got records from the church, what did they not understand? Help me understand that.
So I think there's a bit of naivety here if we're saying, why don't we accept Eusebius and Irenaeus and these other voices? One of the things we're all trying to do is collate all this different data. For example, Eusebius, Irenaeus, Tertullian are 3 of the key witnesses here. They don't agree on the lists.
Okay, so what don't they agree on?
I've done a whole video on this, and specifically with the Bishop of Rome. But first, let me finish my point, because this happens a lot. It doesn't help the dialogue when you interrupt, and I've gotten one sentence into a response when I was listening patiently to your.
Listen, Gavin was not playing with these folks. Gavin was not playing, and you can see people think that, oh, it's just it's just Alton, or it's just JP, or it's just CK, or it's just them that get interrupted. And look at Gavin. Gavin is just like, okay, you ask me a question. As soon as I say one sentence, you want to hop in. And he says that, listen, these 3 people, Tertullian, Eusebius, and Ignatius, they don't agree on the list. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Just calm yourself, man. Calm yourself. Tranquilo.
A whole video on that, and specifically with the Bishop of Rome. But first, let me finish my point, because this happens a lot. It doesn't help the dialogue when you interrupt, and I've gotten one sentence into a response when I was listening patiently to your unfolding comments.
You're right. First, I apologize.
That's all right. No problem. So we're trying to look at all the data, and that means you can't accept it all. I mean, Eusebius had some strange Christological views and other things. We don't just have to accept everything Eusebius said. We're trying to look at all the data. So when we look at,
he said that Eusebius has some strange Christological understandings. No, not Eusebius. Actually, to be honest, I haven't really looked into that, so I can't give y'all any examples. And y'all know I've brought up some stuff from before, or some things that some early church fathers I said. I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, even Augustine he said some stuff, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, when he was speaking against Pelagius and he was speaking against Julian, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm totally with you, brother. He was bringing a hot fire. there was a couple of things that he said. I was just like, oh, I don't know about that, Augustine. But again, that's why we have to let these church fathers be who they were. We're talking about people who lived 1,500 to almost 2,000 years ago. That's why we just let them just let them be who they were, instead of trying to well everybody believe until the falls.
You brought up a really important point and a good point at the beginning of your comments. That's what I was about to get to and wanted to respond to.
Oh, Veckel. All right, so y'all on right now, brother? You said that you was gonna give me, y'all was gonna shout me out or something. Oh, you say you just kidding. Now listen, man. If you go live, man, just let me know. Well, hey, what time is this? 9:27. Okay, it's 9:27. I think I'm gonna start watching CK soon as this is almost done, y'all. All right, so we almost done here. Well, hold on. I want to bring this up. What did Workman say? Workman says he later accepted the correction, but the EOs speak ill of Eusebius because he said, I'm sorry, he speaks. Oh, okay. Speak ill of Eusebius because he said everyone was against icons. Yeah, I actually got that. I actually got Eusebius's letter to Constantine's sister concerning icons. I think I've read that a couple of times on this channel.
Is the distinction between terminology and function. And you're right. This gets very tricky. And you can't make the claim just on the basis of terminology. You have to look at functions as well. So, to your side, you could say Titus and Timothy were basically like bishops, even though they're never called bishops. And we would know that from how they're functioning. The problem is, if you look at function, it also doesn't support apostolic succession. These are itinerant apostolic delegates. It's not an assertion, it's just a fact that they didn't only serve in one church. The didache is relevant to this as well. If you look at the actual stable officers within local churches, the evidence from the time in question is without exception that they are in the plural. So even if you take the term presbyter and take the term bishop, completely sweep them off, there's not a single example
hold on,
from the entire apostolic.
How long y'all gonna be live? How long y'all gonna be live for? Let me check my and see, I haven't even gotten any notifications. I got no notification that you was live, brother. Oh man, he said he'll get me next time. All right, brother, hold me to it. Let me see what Og says. Og says Eusebius wasn't performing transubstantiation. Nope. It's a lot of things that the church fathers were not doing. And see, what happens is that these guys, these Orthodox especially, and Roman Catholics to a certain degree, but the Orthodox are a little bit more heavy-handed with this, and they try to make it seem like that everybody taught the Eucharist and the seven sacraments and all of that stuff. Did they cover that? I don't know if they covered that on here yet, because I know I've kind of missed a couple of things when I was on the phone. But yeah, I mean, these guys didn't teach every single thing that we're seeing in the Orthodox Church. And some of these things, it later developed. And it's okay to say, yeah, some of the stuff may have developed later because at this time you had this going on, and then therefore you had these types of people who moved in, and then you had, one particular part of church history where, Christians started being influenced by these other group of people, so therefore you start to see a mixing and mingling of the practices. It's okay. It's okay to say that. But see, when you have a man-made institution and you stake the claim, this is coming from the Bible, you gotta keep that lie going. And all you gotta do is just keep duping people into believing one thing, and and this is how you end up getting a lot of these people who are just converting into Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, especially Eastern Orthodoxy. Get a guy like Jay Dyer and put him as a poster child of that. Have a lot of guys start having all these false conversions. And then that's how you validate your church. Oh, well, we have a bunch of young men coming to our church. Everybody's leaving that weak, effeminate Protestant church, and they're coming over here. Yeah, but the women and the girls inside of your church are complaining about these weirdos that are showing up at your parishes, talking about they want them to be their wives. These women complaining about that these guys smell bad and they don't want to get jobs and they don't even want to take care of their own hygiene. They don't want to get haircuts and shave. They're awkward. But we've got a whole bunch of these men showing up in our parishes. Why? Because you think that all of these guys showing up, like that means something. Not at all.
Apostolic age, where you have one person functioning in what will later come to be called a bishop. And so what Protestants are trying to do is exactly what you guys are saying about honoring the authority of the church. But we're trying to submit to the church Jesus set up. And part of that means,
Amen.
just like we don't accept Roman Catholic accretions, we don't accept accretions in other contexts to what the apostles themselves taught. So I would just say, if you look at first epistle of Clement, you look at that and you say, how many offices are in the church? To me, it is absolutely outstandingly unanimous that there are 2. And that is exactly what Clement says in fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. Here are his words. Jesus appointed prophets and bishops and deacons, quote, and this was no new method. For many years before had bishops and deacons been written of. For the scripture says thus in one place, I will establish their bishops in righteousness and their deacons in faith, end quote. He's quoting Old Testament scripture to tell us there's 2 offices, bishops and deacons. If you want me to accept that your church...
Now he's quoting first century sources. He's quoting the Didache, which is right there in the first century. And he's just like, this is what they have to say about the offices of the church, the early church. But you're trying to tell us something different.
Says thus in one place, I will establish their bishops in righteousness and their deacons in faith, end quote. He's quoting Old Testament scripture to tell us there's 2 offices, bishops and deacons. If you want me to accept that your church is the one true church on the basis of an alternative view, you need to have some evidence from the founding of our religion that there's more than 2 offices.
Yeah. So
you need evidence.
Did you have any, you want to continue or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So no, I appreciate you sharing. Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to, I appreciate you doing that. I want to be better at that. So I've jotted down a few things that you mentioned. And Father, please, I'd want, if you want to share something after I say this, I just want to quickly engage with what
we got 6 minutes left. Justin, why don't you go first, and then Father, and you guys can have the last word if you want.
Let me be brief then. Okay, so you mentioned Eusebius having weird Christological views. Now I'm quoting Eusebius as a historian, not necessarily if he had some funky theology here and there. And he's documenting things from church records. So you have to push back how is he getting all this wrong, and why his contemporaries as well are getting this wrong. It's just not enough to just say, well, he just probably had weird Christological view or this and the third. I would grant. And yeah, so.
Okay. So now you see. Oh yeah. Well, Eusebius has some weird Christological, theological views, but when it's convenient, you'll quote him as a church father and as an authority. Oh, Eusebius, he believed in this, and Eusebius believed in that. How come you're not following Eusebius? But then when somebody points out, yeah, he had some problems with his doctrine as well. Well, not a hand waving. See, and that's the thing with these. That's the thing with these Orthodox. They don't know how to use even scales. They're not using even scales. What's going on with this thing? Oh, there we go.
So yeah, that's another thing. Another thing is you mentioned Eusebius and Irenaeus having wrong lists. You would have to prove that. And I know you mentioned you
just go to the first bishop of Rome. Yeah. Just look at what they say. Tertullian and Irenaeus.
To that point, Irenaeus says that pretty much the first bishop he has is Linus. I have it written right here where he says it. Eusebius has Peter.
No. Tertullian and Irenaeus.
Oh, well, you didn't say Tertullian. I didn't. But
those 3. I mentioned those 3 witnesses.
Well, another thing is, and we could probably look at it sometime, or maybe we do a follow up.
I want y'all to catch that. Because this guy is trying to say that, oh well, we all have this unbroken chain, this unbroken line of apostolic succession. And Gavin Ortlund's just like, no. Name the bishops. Well, this is what Eusebius said. And he's just like, okay, well, what about Tertullian? One person says Peter. One person says, I forgot who he said. Let's back that up just
Father John. Oh, well, you didn't say Tertullian. You
But
said it in
just
other
go to the
videos.
first bishop of Rome.
Yeah.
Just look at what they say. Tertullian and Irenaeus.
So yeah, to that point,
Tertullian and Irenaeus. Right. So he clearly said Tertullian and Irenaeus.
Irenaeus says that pretty much the first bishop he has is Linus. You know, I have it.
Okay. So Irenaeus has Linus as the first bishop of Rome. Tertullian says it's Peter. Who's correct? Which one is correct?
And right here where he says it. Eusebius has Peter.
No. Tertullian and Irenaeus.
Oh, well, you didn't say Tertullian. I didn't.
He literally said Tertullian. But again, what happens? These guys, they don't listen. They don't listen. All they know is that there's a script, and everything that you say, they're going to try to find an argument against it. But they think that they know what you're going to say, so they just start arguing. That's why you'd be like, man, I didn't even say that.
But
those three, I mentioned those three witnesses.
Well, another thing is, and we could probably look at it sometime, or maybe we do a follow up. Father Jonathan, we could do a follow-up video about these lists. But you have them sometimes ranking. Some people don't count Peter as that first bishop. So exactly. It depends on how someone is actually documenting the list. But
he's literally proven Gavin's point. What did Gavin say at the beginning? He said that you guys don't have the same list of apostolic succession. Y'all don't have the same bishops. Yes, we do. Now remember what the claim was. Remember, I want to put this back. I want to circle all of this back around. The claim was, us as Protestants, we don't have apostolic succession. So since we don't have the apostolic succession, we definitely are not a church. We're not Christians because we don't share in that same tradition. Roman Catholics share in that same tradition of apostolic succession. So that means that, yeah, they're somewhat Christians. They're a lot closer to us than you guys. Gavin Ortlund says, well, one of the reasons why I'm Protestant is because, and I'm just, paraphrasing of what he said, because we look at church history and we know that there are differences in what the church fathers believe, and there are things that they differ on. So we don't want to, stay up at night worrying about what one church father said versus another. We understand. We take the history as a whole. Some people stayed in different times. Some people stayed in different areas. Some people were influenced by this group of people, while another group of Christians were influenced by that group. So we know that they're not always going to agree. So now this guy, John, is his name Jonathan too? Because we got Father Justin. So this guy Justin, okay, is now finally conceding that, oh yeah, well, there's different, there's different lists. There's different apostolic lists. It's like, okay, now you finally conceded that there is a different list, that the apostolic succession is different and it varies from church to church. The conversation could have been over an hour ago if you just would have conceded that and you would have been honest about that. That's all we asking for, is for honesty. But all you have to do is keep talking to these people. And they'll 100 times out of 100, they'll always prove your point. Every time I have a conversation with these folks, and they'll start out with their little polemics and their little mocking and all of their little script. But when that script run out, they always end up conceding their point and making my point. It's just like when I was talking to the two Orthodox guys. You as a Calvinist, you believe that babies go to hell and this, that. And I said, I've never said that. No, but that's what you got to believe. You believe that if those babies are not saved by grace through faith alone, and if they don't accept Jesus Christ, they're going to go to hell. Okay, well, let's read what your church says. Because I already told you that's not my position. But your church says that if infants are not baptized, then they're going to hell. Well, that's not what we believe. And now read the Confession of Dositheus. where it clearly says that infants need baptism, and the reason why they baptize infants is because they have the state of original sin. And if they die in that state, then those children will not be saved. And then I turn around and ask the Orthodox guy, "Is that your position?" Well, what my church teaches is that, yeah, baptism is necessary, because if a baby is baptized, then that baby's going to be with God. But if that baby is not baptized, then that baby's going to be separated from God. Well, what does that mean? Well, it just means hell. That's what it means, brother. And I pressed him the same way, and I said, "Listen, why didn't you just?" So when I say that I don't have a position because I don't know, the Bible is not explicit and it's not clear, and you trying to make it seem like that I believe that babies automatically go to hell, but then when I show that your church says it, then you basically say, "Well, I don't know if I can make that call." Well, basically, you saying the same thing that I'm saying. So we went ring around the rosy the whole time just for you to end up accepting my position in the first place. And this is you're seeing exactly what's happening right now. Exactly what's happening.
That first bishop, so
Exactly.
it depends on how someone is actually documenting the list. But for the
No, it's the next one. It's after Peter.
hold on.
The next list contradict in those two.
Okay, well, I'd have to go into. You also
Whoa,
said,
whoa, hold on.
So
I'm gonna back that up. I want y'all to catch this part. Catch this part. Because remember, he's the one who said that Gavin Ortlund was wrong, that the list contradict. Now remember that. Remember that. He said that Gavin Ortlund was wrong. And Gavin Ortlund says there's overwhelming evidence that there is no solid list of apostles. Oh, you wrong. You wrong. Now watch what he says.
okay, well, I'd have to go and see that. But anywho,
Okay, now he'll have to go and see it. Just the same argument that Gavin was making the whole time. Now you got to go back and see it. But you said that he was wrong.
you also said, and the point of the matter is, Gavin, like, we think that the historical record is overwhelming, but even if I for a second just grant that, like, let's pretend like you're right, the modern scholarship is correct, and the church fathers are just wrong on this, or antiquities got this wrong, but the modern views got this correct. Let's say that's true for a moment.
That's not my position, but go ahead.
Look, had to misrepresent him. Had to misrepresent Gavin. I'm gonna back it up again because I want y'all to hear this. We're gonna go through this slow because people think that, oh, you're always misrepresenting the Orthodox and the Roman Catholics. I get this all the time. But let's listen to this slow, y'all.
You're right, the modern scholarship is correct.
Okay, so look, he's saying that. Well, let's just say, for instance, Gavin, that you're right. The modern scholars got it correct. And what else?
And the church fathers are just wrong on this, or antiquities got.
And the church fathers are wrong on this. Look at Gavin's face, because he know that he's just straight misrepresenting them.
This wrong, but the modern views got this correct. Let's say that's true.
Antiquities got it wrong, but the modern scholars got it right. Nothing close to what Gavin was saying.
For a moment,
that's not my position, but go ahead.
If that's not your position, but let's say that even in the council,
he has to misrepresent because he has nothing.
Of Nicaea, right? You have this understanding of this threefold office. So if it's something that the church this is something that is binding and accepted, then at what point do you now get to decide to reject what the whole church in council have agreed upon and have accepted? So if you say that apostolic succession and whatever, there's no evidence of anybody being able to usher in their apart from someone who already has been appointed. There's no evidence of this. But yet, in your view of ecclesiology, you accept groups that don't have any connection to the apostles, any appointed authority. That's why I brought up. Yeah.
The question is, what is the connection? The connection is Jesus. The connection is the work of the gospel.
But that's not what
I don't accept. You need to have.
Okay,
that's why I use an adjective like institutional.
Right, but you say the connection is Jesus. Anybody.
Sure.
But Nicaea, if you take Nicaea for what it is. If you're going to sit here and, like, I imagine you walk into in the Council of Nicaea or
and see, that went right over this guy's head. He said that the connection is Jesus. The connection is Jesus. And he just hand waves that. Why? Because these people do not care about the gospel. They don't care about the gospel. They don't care about what Jesus has taught.
or posted the canons of Nicaea, and you say, well, yeah, I know you guys excommunicate, but I don't need to accept that because my connection is Jesus. You would not be, you would have no connection to the church. And so
Well, I
even
would say it's just Jesus. Yeah.
well, okay, but you're
I'm interrupting you, Mike.
but yeah, but you said you wouldn't say just Jesus, but even here, you, in response to this idea of an actual boundary of authority, you responded to me, Jesus. So if you focus on why you would disregard the bishops at Nicaea, I would be interested on how you would accept that. Furthermore, I would also be interested in your understanding of ecclesiology, how excommunication would be even possible. Like, how can anyone commit the sin of faction, as we see in Galatians chapter 5, 19 to 21? How can somebody even be excommunicated? Because if I was in your church, like if y'all kicked me out, I could just go to the Protestant church down the street, or I'm sorry, like the Baptist church down the street, and I could just start my own as long as I have sacraments and rightly dividing the word, rightly dividing.
This is polemics. He's not quoting any sources, any Protestant sources. And with Gavin being a Reformed Baptist, all you got to do is just pull up Reformed Baptist Confessions and Creeds. That's all you got to do. It is that simple. You know, that's the thing. It's not like he's talking to a person who's like a non-denom. A person who will say, you know, because there are some people, and not all non-denom say this, but there are some people who's just like, yeah, no creed but Christ. It's like, yeah, we don't go by confessions and creeds or anything like that. But Gavin he's a part of a church that holds to confessions and creeds. Why not use those confessions and creeds against them? Oh, right, because they align too much with the Bible. And plus, they're too lazy, so they're not really going to actually study what you believe. They'll never correctly study what you believe because they're lazy. And he's running all of these polemics. It's the same old script. Yeah, well, you know, you're a part of a church that, you know, if something happens, all I got to do is just leave that church and go join another one. And you guys don't have apostolic succession and all of this stuff here. It's just polemics. Because you know why? They don't have anything.
The word, according to how you kind of see things, then I have a church. So excommunication seems impossible in your view.
Okay, I mean, all right. So now that took all 6 minutes. So we're out of time. I can't respond to everything you said there.
Okay, we could focus on the excommunication part.
I would encourage you to study historic Protestant models of excommunication.
Yeah,
that it
study
doesn't.
that.
I don't get the sense I'm getting a criticism that is really wrestled sympathetically with our historic text.
Right.
But my main observation would be, even if everything you are saying is correct, that is at best, criticism against some Protestant models, not an establishment of Eastern Orthodoxy. And the reason it's helpful to come back to that is that's where we differ.
And I want y'all to pay attention to what Gavin just said. You still not showing us why Eastern Orthodoxy is the one true church. All you're doing is just running polemics and saying that, well, you know, the Protestant church, this, that, and the third. And it's just like, well, you haven't even studied the Protestant position to even understand what we believe about excommunication. People say, oh, well, you know, in your worldview, Gavin, you don't really know, you don't really hold to this view of excommunication and all of this stuff. And Gavin is just like you haven't studied this. And Gavin is just like, man, I've wrote books on this stuff.
I don't think the true Church of Christ is plausibly restricted to Eastern Orthodoxy, and that's that's what an argument in favor of your view would need to establish, not just knocking down some targets,
right,
but actually establishing that position.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is you don't have a target. So you're saying knocking down some targets, but if you say, like I keep bringing this back, you see, for example, low church, high church, Protestants as part of the one true church. So you've rejected historic Christianity because that's not, you've rejected. So for example, I brought up excommunication earlier, and I brought up, for example, this idea of how authority was understood. But if you just say, well, hey, that doesn't necessarily establish orthodoxy, it almost leaves what you're saying about the church untouched when that's not even real. It's not true that you can have a church that has no boundaries, has no authority in that sense. Because
bro, this is just a huge word salad. This dude is not saying anything. He knows that he's cooked and he's just throwing whatever to the wall to see what sticks. And that's why Gavin is just like, what are you talking about? He's just saying stuff. He's not quoting any sources. He's not even quoting Bible at this moment. You know, I would at least be like, okay, at least he's quoting scripture. He ain't even doing that. He's totally misrepresenting Gavin's point, saying something Gavin has never said, not quoting Protestant sources, not even quoting the confession, not even quoting scripture.
You're including groups that just, and it's like a Mott and Bailey fallacy. So, for example, if I critique what you're saying
Gavin.
about
Gavin
the church,
is,
you say, well,
Gavin
look
is
at the
dumb
historic
with
views
this.
of Protestantism, and you'll see that we have had communication. But engage with the point I said here. If I leave your church own and I gather a couple of people, rightly divide the word, if I just join the Pentecostal church, you would still say that I'm in the church, in your view.
Not necessarily. No, that's what I'm saying. Engage with historic Protestant views of excommunication, but it's not a Mott and Bailey fallacy because there's two different claims on the table. Okay. It'd be one thing if I said Eastern Orthodoxy is wrong, therefore Protestantism is correct. I'm not arguing that. We take each claim in turn. First, we look at Eastern Orthodoxy. We say, is this actually correct? It's totally valid to note 19th century encyclicals that call Roman Catholicism apostate and all these things and say there's no good argument for that restrictiveness. And then subsequently, we go to a Protestant model. I don't think you fairly characterized my view by saying it, quote, it departs from church history and it has no target. You could make an argument for that, but I pointed to a historical document, First Epistle of Clement, as one starting. The only historical data that's really been marshaled here in our discussion, I've responded to as I can. You mentioned Eusebius and Irenaeus, so I say, okay, these early lists, part of my...
I want you to hear what Gavin is saying. Gavin is saying that the only person that's really been bringing up sources and evidence is me. You guys are not bringing, you guys haven't brought anything. And what happened to Father Jonathan? I forgot that he was there. He's so dang quiet. He's so quiet. I forgot he was, I forgot he was a part of the conversation.
One starting. The only historical...
And he just sit back and just watching his mans get cooked right here live. How you gonna sit back and watch the dude just get cooked on your watch?
Data that's really been marshaled here in our discussion, I've responded to as I can. You mentioned Eusebius and Irenaeus, so I say, okay, these early lists, that's part of my case in my chapter. I'm surveying all of those. You can point to, and I quote from Jerome as well, I respond to that. So if you want to establish that my view of the church has no basis in church history, you need to engage with what I said. For example, I pointed to Clement explicitly saying there's two offices in the church. If that's not a piece of historical data, then you need to engage it and show, why don't you agree with Clement on that point?
Yeah, so I did engage it, and I mentioned to you that, well, I know Father...
Do you repeat what you said? Because I don't remember you engaging Clement. Could you repeat succinctly what is your response to Clement?
Well, my thing is the term, as I said earlier, term bishop and deacon. I'm sorry, not bishop and deacon, bishop and presbyter. Like,
well, it doesn't need to go to Numbers. He says two offices. Fulfillment of divine prophecy. There are two offices in the church. Those are his. I read a moment ago.
Father Jonathan, did he say two?
Yo, bro, he can't make this up. Father Jonathan, did he say two? He knows he's done. And Father Jonathan is not helping this guy at all. And he had to go, Father Jonathan, did he say that? Let's back that up. We got to hear it again.
Like,
well, it doesn't need to go to Numbers. He says two offices. Fulfillment of divine prophecy. There are two offices in the church. Those are his words.
Where does he say two?
Chapter 42. I read it a moment ago.
Father Jonathan, did he say two?
Yes, he said two, brother.
It depends on the it depends on the translation. I'm looking at it now on the online ccel.org site. And he doesn't say there are two. He says, I will appoint their bishops in righteousness and their deacons in faith. Now he's paraphrasing something in the Old Testament in Isaiah, in the Septuagint. But the text here, the note here is the text is altered by Clement. The Septuagint has, I will give your rulers in peace and your overseers in righteousness. That's what the Septuagint says. Clement
Wait. He said it was altered, but he said that Clement altered the text.
Paraphrases or adjusts the wording to fit something else that he's saying in chapter 42.
Yeah. And
Okay, so Clement is wrong now. Clement is wrong. Now remember, oh yeah, we can find somebody in the first century, Clement of Alexandria. But then he breaks so now they're saying that, oh well Clement misquoted. Brother, did you not hold on? Let's see where we're at. Let's see where we're at. This is we're at the 10. What is this? The 101 mark? The 110 mark. Okay. So this is one. So it's like the 110 mark. All right. So we're gonna go back. Okay. Now remember, they brought up Clement. Let me see if I could go to the part where he brought the slides up. Let's see. Here we go. That is Father Jonathan's slide. Can y'all see what that is on the screen? Is that Clement? They brought up Clement. He brought up Clement. Okay? Now let's go back. I told y'all got to watch for these trick bags. Watch for the trick bag, man. Watch this.
He doesn't say there are two. Now it depends on the it depends on the translation. I'm looking at it now on the online ccel.org site. Two, he says, I will appoint their bishops in righteousness and their deacons in faith. Now he's paraphrasing something in the Old Testament in Isaiah, in the Septuagint. But the text here, the note here is the text is altered by Clement. The Septuagint has, I will give your rulers.
It was altered by Clement. Now he had no problem bringing Clement up earlier, but now all of a sudden Clement is altering the text.
In peace and your overseers in righteousness. That's what the Septuagint says. Clement adjusts the wording to fit something else that he's saying in chapter 42.
Yeah. And I want to say that.
So Clement adjusts the text to basically, he didn't want to say fit in the narrative. He didn't want to say that. Thank you for the super chat, Workman. He says, First Clement is New Testament canon according to true law. And if people don't understand, true law is a council that is recognized by the Orthodox Church. Grace, peace, Adam. Grace and peace, Adam. Oh, what was that? We'll go back up. Yeah, he says, love Brother Alton's commentary. Man, listen, if y'all just see the world that I see it, the way I see it, y'all will be laughing too, man. And that's why I do these videos, because I want y'all to see the world the way I see it. So Clement was altering the text, although he brought it up.
It could have been Clement too. That also talks about makes a connection between the high priest, the priest, and the deacon. I hope I'm not mixing him up with Ignatius there. Okay, I'll say that, Gavin. So, what would you say about Nicaea? Because I don't see any form of what, like for example, I don't see any form of what any kind of Christian that is in your understanding of Christianity in the first millennium, like post.
Oh my goodness! See the slot arguments. Well, I don't see anybody in the first 1,000 years who practice the way that you do.
Post the apostles, I don't see anyone that resembles Gavin or someone in Gavin's church, right?
Okay,
and so I don't know what to do.
It's a big question to throw out when we're 5 minutes over. I can respond to that.
Right, and Gavin said he only had 6 minutes, and this dude took the whole time bringing up slop arguments.
I'm sorry?
No, you said it's a big question. It's easy. I would say Saint Basil, Saint Athanasius, these people, they resemble. They practice. They had more than 2 sacraments. They venerate. They honored relics.
On these points, there's not one Christian in the entire first millennium who's.
Look at Gavin. Gavin is just like, he is done. Gavin is done. He's just like, yo, what is this guy talking about? Watch the way Gavin responds.
Venerate. They honored relics.
On these points, there's not one Christian in the entire first millennium who said there are 7 sacraments in particular.
They don't have to say it exactly.
That was it. That's what I was trying to talk about earlier. That's what I was trying to talk about because I didn't know if they had covered this part yet. And I thought it was towards the end, but I wasn't sure. This guy says, oh, yeah, they all had 7 sacraments and all of this stuff. And Gavin Ortlund's just like, no, they had nowhere near close to those 7 sacraments in the early church.
Or acted as though there were 7, or referenced 7, or did anything with the number 7 in particular.
Chris, and I'm not saying I didn't say. Did I say 7? You said 7.
Well, that's the number that.
7.
Well, who says 7?
Or in the entire first millennium.
They venerate, they honor, more than 2 sacraments. They
more than 2 sacraments. His church holds to 7. Another trick bag. This is what I'll be talking about with the trick bag. He knows that his church holds to the 7 sacraments. What is he arguing for 3 sacraments? 4 sacraments? Up to 6 sacraments, but not the full 7?
They venerate, they honored relics.
On these points, there's not one Christian in the entire first millennium who said there are 7 sacraments in particular.
They don't have to say it exactly verbatim.
Or acted as though there were 7, or referenced 7, or did anything with the number 7 in particular.
And I'm not saying I didn't say. Did I say 7? You said.
His church uses the 7 sacraments. Now he want to play games. Well, see, I didn't say 7, but your church holds the 7 sacraments, and you say that your church did everything from the first century. That's the argument right now. Nobody's in the first century honored Christ or worshiped the way that you did. The way that you do now, sorry. So Gavin is just like, yeah, but nobody held to those 7 sacraments in the early church. Well, did I say 7? That's what your church believes.
7.
Well, that's the number that
7.
many non-Protestant models hold. So I'm pointing out, if the verb you use is resemble, you need to resemble the first millennium. Right. The reason I think that is a complicated question to explore here, now that we're over time, is that the church changes. A person when they're 4 and a person when they're 25 looks very different, even though they're the same person. The church changes over time. Now, it's complicated to figure out, if I could just finish, it's complicated to figure out what, because it has to do with the question, because you're asking me what churches today, how they resemble the first millennium. And I'm pointing out, I think there's naivety if we're expecting a sort of exact resemblance. None of our churches today have exact resemblance. You mentioned Nicaea 1. Nicaea 1 was convoked by a Roman emperor. It would not have happened if there had not been a Roman emperor to convoke it, direct some of the discussions, and then enforce its decrees. We don't have.
Ooh, I got to back that up. I want y'all to hear this. We're talking about the First Council of Nicaea. Now remember, our church looks nothing like the church in the first century, according to these guys. So I'm gonna let Gavin cook on this Council of Nicaea.
If I could just finish, it's complicated to figure out what, because it has to do with the question, because you're asking me what churches today, how they resemble the first millennium. And I'm pointing out, I think there's naivety if we're expecting a sort of exact resemblance. None of our churches today have exact resemblance. You mentioned Nicaea 1. Nicaea 1 was convoked by a Roman emperor. It would not have happened if there had not been a Roman emperor to convoke it, preside over it, direct some of the discussions, and then enforce its decrees. We don't have Roman emperors anymore. That's one way that we're different. Now, is that a problem? Absolutely not. Because the church does change over time, and there are circumstantial and accidental features of the church that do accrue and that do change. A Protestant is free to open his or her heart to all such change, to the accidental features of the church. And for example, even across the globe today, there may be a church that's meeting underground in China that doesn't resemble my church at all. And it doesn't matter because they have the gospel. What makes the church is the gospel. And this would be, this gets at the nerve center of it all. It's not just about exclusivity. It's about what is the animating core that makes the church what it is. And I would say it's Jesus today doing what he did in Acts chapter 2, pouring out his Holy Spirit to the fruit of the gospel. And I see that abundantly outside of Eastern Orthodoxy. And so, that is the fundamental issue for me is I still don't know why someone would embrace this restrictive view that the church is just Eastern Orthodoxy.
Because this restricted view is the only one that makes sense. It's the only one that logically makes sense. And even if you don't accept Orthodoxy, if you're going to make, Christ only established one church. There's not
amen to that. Agreed on one church.
Amen. Yeah. So the thing is, like, Protestantism, or like your church, did not like, if we go to the time of Nicaea, it didn't exist. And it's easy to see that through the canons. And that's not to say that, obviously, I know you love Jesus. I know that you're faithful. Like, this is not something that's like a personal kind of shock.
Look at Gavin. Listen.
Obviously, I know you love Jesus. The time of Nicaea, it didn't exist. Look to see that through the canons. And that's not to say that obviously I know you love Jesus. I know that you're faithful. Like, this is not something.
Hey, you know what I think I'm gonna do? I think that I'm going to I think I'm gonna go through this through this video. And I think I'm gonna put a compilation together of all of these faces that Gavin is making. And just make like a short video out of it. They really they really got up under his skin. This is almost done. It's almost done.
That's like a personal kind of shock, because Father Jonathan and I, we're just talking about what is the church, what is the true church, and obviously we would love for everybody to come home. You know, it's an invitation. Like, we're all that, we're the bomb. It's more so like, hey, this is just a historical reality. Protestantism, as seen in today, or like to defend today, did not exist.
All right, that's the end of that. I thought that this was a great video. I thought that Gavin Ortlund's, especially his, I'm trying to see if I can. I wish I could turn his lamp to like face me, but you know. But anyway, can't do all of that. I got limited light here in the hotel. But yeah, man, Gavin, he did a great job. Gavin did a great job. You know, they really did kind of get up under Gavin's skin. And I mean, they definitely would have got up on him. But me, I probably would have been laughing the whole time because I would have been pressing them. You know, I wouldn't have been as nice as Gavin Ortlund. But not saying that I would have been like super mean or I just would have been like a jerk or anything like that. But I definitely would have pressed them on this. And you can see that Father Jonathan, and I'm kind of, wait, hold on. He said that that's not the end. That was the end. Yeah, that was the end of the video. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Uh-oh, my bad. You might be right. Hey, okay, so thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. I did not watch the rest of this because I thought that that was the end of the video. Okay, so listen. All right. I have not seen this part, so we're gonna watch this live. All right. To be honest, I really thought that was it. I didn't watch this part. Oh, my bad. Let me share my screen. Let's get back to this. So this is a real time reaction right here because I didn't see this part.
There's something that is, you know, I think we should probably draw things to a close unless there's something that is, you know, really immediately glaring, or unless Father Jonathan wants to weigh in. I'll just state my plain disagreement with your comment that, you know,
Dang,
Protestantism just is a departure from historic.
Wait, hold on. So I missed a whole 4 minutes of this? Let's watch this. Let's watch this. Okay. All right. Andreas, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this real quick, and then I'm gonna hop off because it's 10 o'clock, and I gotta go to bed too. All right. So let's watch this. I'm gonna try to be as quiet as possible.
Christianity. Again, an argument needs to be given from the data. And that's what I've been doing when I go to First Epistle of Clement or when I go to Jerome and his historical interpretations.
I'd like to bring this to
that is not necessarily helpful.
I'd like to bring this to a conclusion, gentlemen, because, dear viewers, we did agree with Dr. Gavin ahead of time that we would go a certain length, and we are well over 10 minutes past that length, and he has another appointment coming up. We will do a response video to this video that will give us an opportunity to present our case. We'll bring that to the attention of Dr. Gavin, and if he wishes to respond in kind, we would welcome it. But the time that we have had presented to us did not allow us enough time to cover the topic in the way in which was most fruitful for both sides to be able to talk about and so forth.
What is he talking about? He literally sat there with his mouth closed. He didn't say anything for like the past 30 minutes. What are you talking about? Oh, well, we didn't have enough time. Brother, you were sitting there with your mouth zipped and your lip zipped. Actually, I need to start being quiet because, you know, I am in the hotel and it's like 10 o'clock where I'm at.
So we're going to have to pick this up another time and do our best to make the Orthodox point, and we hope you'll turn in when we tune.
He got to make the Orthodox point, but he had a whole hour to do so, and he couldn't do it.
In when we do that, and that'll be very soon.
Yeah.
Dr. Gavin, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you coming on. This is a very important topic, and I do wish we had more of an opportunity to get into the meat and substance of everything that we've brought up. And we'll try and do that when we pick this up again.
Well, we had more time than we agreed upon, so I'm glad we could work.
Listen, man, that's what I love about Gavin. Gavin is like he's such a nice guy, but like it's like when he listen, you hear what he's saying. He's like, hey, listen, we have more than enough time. I even gave y'all extra time. So don't talk about, oh, we didn't have time to get into this. No, the thing is that you didn't have no response.
Do as best we can. I'm happy to talk with you guys. I think follow-up rebuttals to dialogues are a little bit
we're not gonna it's not about a rebuttal. We just feel like there's not enough time to lay out everything.
Yeah, it's not a rebuttal. Not a rebuttal.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a rebuttal. But I do want to say, Gav, please, if you felt like at that last point I was tearing on, please pardon me.
It's all good. It happens.
I was just trying to make that historical point. But I do appreciate you coming through, and I know time's up. You could just quickly plug your book real quick.
Supposed to talk about that
if it takes a second.
All good. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a little bit off topic, so we don't need to do too much time on it. But I have a book coming out called Why Christianity Makes Sense, and it's basically my effort to just give a brief snapshot overview of what, especially for someone who's not already familiar, kind of completely not assuming any background. Someone doesn't have any belief in God. Actually, the first section is just why you should be curious about religion. So just trying to,
yeah, Sean, he didn't
speak to someone wherever they may be coming from, and then all the way up to, and you should.
Yeah, Gavin, he was just like, yeah, I'm sorry, we have more than enough time. I was supposed to be off 10 minutes ago. And then you want to talk about you want to do a rebuttal. It's like, what you mean? We had enough time. Y'all laid out y'all whole, and they actually talked more than he did. Well, we just didn't have enough time to kind of lay out our position. No, the thing is that you got cooked, and now you got to do a cope stream and do damage control. That's what that translates to.
And you should become a Christian, and here's what baptism is, and so forth. So that book is coming out any week now. It should get shipped out. So thanks for letting me mention it, and hopefully people will find it helpful.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you very much, dear viewers. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you spending the time with us, and we look forward to our next step in life. Thank you again, Dr. Gavin. Thank you, Justin. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. We'll see you soon.
All right. Don't want to play too much of that because that's might be some copyrighted music on there. All right, so yeah, there you have it. There you guys have it. Yeah, just like Og said, we're gonna rebut this dialogue after you leave. Yeah, and that's what they do. That's what they do. Why do you think that guys like Cleve and Alex they're so popular right now? Because they like to do like responses after they've like talked. Here's the thing. I know that there's some Protestants who do it on their side where they'll kind of like go back over their streams and they'll, say, well, we had this conversation and, we're going to go back and go through it. I try not to do that. I think the last time that I did that was with Cherry Love. And that's because that was just a whole dumpster fire. But I don't think that I've done any video where I've had a conversation with somebody and then I went back and then reviewed what the conversation was about. I'm like, I say what I gotta say, and I'm just like, it is what it is. There's nothing that's going to change. But they have to do a rebuttal video because it was bad. Damage control. They can't let that slide because if they had done or said everything that they needed to say, they wouldn't do a rebuttal video. There wouldn't be no need to. What we're going to talk about, we brought out everything that we was going to bring out. But now they have to do damage control. Why? Because they know that it's bad. They know it's bad. Look, they know that they was totally unprepared. And not to mention, it was two guys. Two of y'all couldn't even rebut one Gavin Ortlund, a father of a church. And another guy couldn't even rebut Gavin Ortlund. Now you know that's bad. You know that's bad. You couldn't even rebut Gavin Ortlund. One guy. It was a 2v1. He said, just check their channel. They scheduled a video with Sir. Oh, wow. Of course. Now they got to go run to Alex Soren. You know, I want y'all to pay attention to something. Look at that guy, Father Jonathan. This is a guy who's supposed to be leading young men in Christ, in Christ, through their one true church. That's what you get when you get to orthodoxy. You don't get gospel. You don't get truth. You get polemics. Now we got to go run to Alex Soren to try to do damage control. Orthodoxy is on decline. They can't keep this up. There's no way that they can keep operating the way that they're operating. Because one day people are going to get tired of it. They're going to get tired of the polemics. People are going to get tired of getting cooked by Protestants. And that's it. That's it. And they're just going to be like, hey, let's go on to the next thing. That's all they're going to do is just go on to the next thing. And you got Father Jonathan who sat there and watched his, I don't know if that's his protege or whoever, he sat back and watched this guy get cooked live. And I mean, it wasn't like Gavin Ortlund was trying to cook the guy. Gavin Ortlund was just showing that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And Father Jonathan didn't even step in. Because you know why? Father Jonathan don't know the information. He doesn't. This guy definitely don't know the information. This is orthodoxy. These are people who do not know church history, and they definitely don't know the gospel. This is why we have to continue to stay on top of this. I'm not going anywhere, Lord willing. I'm going to stay on top of this, and I'm going to keep bringing out this information. I'm going to keep doing streams like this, God willing. You know? Rick says Gavin is too ecumenical. Yeah, Gavin is pretty... He is pretty ecumenical. I like him. I'll probably say that that's probably the biggest gripe that I have with Gavin is that he's really ecumenical. Whereas I think that some people need to be rebuked and called out. I think that he does it in a way to where it almost seems like that he's affirming some of these people. But at the end of the day, he is a very smart guy, and I pray that one day he will be able to call out these guys and just say, hey, this is what it is. Or not only that, I would pray too that if there's something that I'm missing, if I do need to be more like Gavin, I pray that the Lord change my heart to where I'm not so, like abrasive. You see what I'm saying? Maybe I'm the one that need to change. Maybe not Gavin. Gavin is probably the one that the Lord is really, really, really walking with. And I'm probably the one that probably needs to mature a little bit. Actually, me and Gavin, I think I'm maybe a couple of years older than Gavin. Yeah, I think I might be about a year or two older than Gavin. So, but if I was a father, all right, so Father Jonathan is about 60 years old, 70. According to him, he's 69. If I would have known, let's just say if I had a younger guy up under me and he wanted to challenge some Orthodox guy who was like really well studied, older, I would be like, hey, listen, you might want to think about this. All right, because you got to make sure that when you're going to go talk to this guy who is well studied in this, don't go in arrogant. Don't go in trying to challenge him because he's just gonna embarrass you. He's gonna make you look bad. So, but he didn't do that. He didn't do that because he's so ingrained in hanging out with these young guys, and that's the thing that's happening with these people. That's the thing that what I see is so sad within the Orthodox Church is that you got these fathers, these guys who are older, like you got, what's the guy's name? Stephen DeYoung. You got guys like Stephen DeYoung. You got this guy, Father Jonathan. It's another guy too that I be seeing on streams. oh gosh, I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Um, the guy with the glasses. I can't remember his name. Father Ron. Father Ron. Um, hanging out with these really young guys these guys are new converts. These guys only been in the faith maybe 3 years tops. Alex Soren's only been in the faith 2 years. Cleve just hit a year. I don't know how long this other guy who was just on. I don't know how long he's been in the Orthodox faith. But I can almost guarantee you it's been less than 5 years. Why are you teaming up with these new converts? Why are you doing that? Because you know why? This has nothing to do with the gospel. Because a person was about the gospel, a real man of God will say, hey, listen, you just got into this. You don't need to be going out here challenging someone who's been doing this way longer than you. But you probably still in high school or middle school when this person was out getting college degrees. You need to sit down somewhere. Learn what we really believe before you get out here trying to challenge people. And that's the problem with a lot of these a lot of these guys who claim that they were reformed, now they're over there. Because us over here on the reform side, we wasn't having that. See, I remember 2016, 2018, when you had this whole influx of these young men coming in. I remember going to G3 conference and all of these young people coming in, all of these young guys growing their beards out, running over to the G3. And when they got there, and you have people like Vodi Bakum and John MacArthur and R.C. Sproul and even James White preaching against some of the foolishness that these guys were doing, challenging these guys to be men, to man up. What happened? Oh, they left. And where did they go? Right over here to Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism. That's why a lot of them go, I used to be Reformed. I used to be a Calvinist. I followed John Piper and stuff. Yeah, you couldn't hang. Why? Because we're trying to teach y'all how to be real men. We don't care about all of that internet stuff. That's why a lot of those dudes left. Next time you hear somebody say, I used to be Reformed, and they're over in Eastern Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism, just know that those are the people that were the rejects. Those were the Reformed rejects who just a few years ago ran to Reformed theology, thought that we was going to allow that foolishness in, and we said no. We said, no, we're not having that. No, you're going to be a man over here. And if you can't be a man over here, then hey, deuces. And that's why we're glad that a lot of those men are not inside of our churches, infecting our churches. But we continue to pray for those young men, and continue to pray for people like all these people that's in the Orthodox Church, right? Just pray for them. And I know sometimes I do talk a little abrasive, but continue to pray for these people because they are lost, right? They're lost, and it's not about me trying to tell people to become Reformed or become Protestant or anything like that. No, I want y'all to come to Christ. Come to Christ. Now I believe that Reformed theology makes sense, and again, I believe that Reformed theology or people in the Reformed faith are doing a lot more work when it comes to like church history and textual criticism and all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? We do a lot of that over here. Not saying that nobody else does, but I would probably say a vast majority of the people who are covering topics like this are Reformed. You know what I'm saying? But again, don't run over into Reformed theology because you're just like, oh my gosh, this is where the true church is. Don't do that. Now you need to find out who Jesus is first. Find out who Christ is. Then you can come on home. All right, then we'll usher you right on in. But yeah, but basically that's all I got. Man, we done been on here almost 3 hours. I knew it was going to be about this long, you know. I knew this was going to be a long live because that video in itself was like an hour itself. But anyway, man, let me get ready to get up out of here, get my butt in the bed. And listen, y'all, before y'all head up out of here, all right, y'all already know what to do. Like this video, rate it, share it, subscribe, hit that notifications bell. So whenever I get ready to go live, y'all be the first ones here to see it. All right. Let me see. Sean Kelly says, what drew the men to begin with? Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of those guys, he's talking about the Reformed faith. From what I saw with a lot of these guys running to Reformed theology was because Reformed theology, a lot of those preachers are like really bold. You know what I'm saying? Some of them have been on like CNN preaching the gospel, like John MacArthur and Voddie Baucham. I think even James White. I think James White was on what's that guy's name with the mustache, the bald guy? Dr. Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm getting old, y'all. What is the name of that guy? Balding guy with the mustache. Dr. Phil. He was on Dr. Phil. And I think that they was talking about like transgenderism and all of that stuff. So yeah, so he got on Dr. Phil and he was like really bold. John MacArthur was on Larry King Live and he was like really bold with the gospel and like really speaking against like Joel Osteen. And then you have Voddie Baucham who was on CNN speaking against like women who are like considering themselves pastors and preachers and all of that stuff. So a lot of people saw that and they started gravitating towards that because they were just like, oh yeah, this is where the men are. We're gonna be over here with the men, and this is the way men are supposed to be. And what ended up happening was that a lot of guys came in under that, right? They came up under that pretense, and once these guys started, coming to our churches, we were just like, hey, hold on, you need to learn how to act like men. Like this ain't we don't just go out here and put on shows. No, we're here to preach the gospel, and we're going to stand bold, and we're going to stand firm on the faith. And, unfortunately, a lot of these guys, they didn't want to do it. But anyway, listen, I will see you guys next time. Lord willing, peace.